Welcome to Wife Cheating Story. I hope you have an enjoyable and relaxing time listening. Let's get started.
Keith's heart hammered the instant he heard that low, familiar male voice on the other end of Bethany's call. She sounded tipsy, giggling. Keith's just checking in. "We're good, honey." Then Corey's distinct chuckle cut through. "Bethany, hang up! Don't bore him with details. He's got his airline life. We got ours, right?" The call ended abruptly, leaving Keith gripping his phone, mind spinning. Had he really heard his wife whisper to another man, his best friend like that? Something in Corey's tone, the closeness of his voice to Bethany's, hinted at far more than a simple ride home. The betrayal felt real, cold, and suffocating. Before we dive into the full story, let us know in the comments where you're watching from. And if you're enjoying this tale, don't forget to subscribe and tap the notification bell so you never miss any of our upcoming stories. Chapter 1. Keith Daniels stepped off the midnight airport shuttle, shoulders aching with the familiar strain of a long flight. The overhead lamps in the quiet suburb flickered, giving the street a haunting glow. He checked his watch. 2:06 a.m. By now, Bethany, his wife of 6 years, should have been asleep, or at least waiting with a lamp on and that gentle smile she once gave him whenever he returned from a flight. But when he approached the driveway, the house stood in an eerie dimness. Keith let out a slow breath. The hush enveloped him as he wheeled his small suitcase across the concrete. He fished out his keys and stepped inside. "Beth, you awake?" he called, voice low to avoid startling her if she was asleep. No answer. Silence pressed against his ears. Flicking the hallway switch, he found the living room neat, no sign of a late-night occupant. Odd. She'd said she'd stay in tonight. He set his suitcase by the sofa, noticing a stray wine glass on the coffee table, half full. The swirling red liquid and faint lipstick stain made him frown. That alone wasn't suspicious. Bethany enjoyed her evening wine, but the glass usually ended up rinsed or in the sink. She wasn't the type to leave it out. "Bethany?" He tried again, a bit louder. Still nothing. The house's stillness gave him a sinking feeling. Keith reached for his phone, thumb hovering over Bethany's contact. As a flight attendant, he was used to being calm under stressful conditions, turbulence, unruly passengers, emergency protocols. Yet the idea of his wife gone at 2 a.m. with no message set his nerves on edge. He tapped call. It rang once, twice, thrice, no pickup. A wave of discomfort swelled. Could she be out with friends? She'd mentioned something about visiting Denise for a wine night. But that usually ended around midnight, not 2 a.m. Finally, the ring cut off, replaced by a click. He heard faint music in the background and muffled voices. Then Bethany's slightly slurred voice. "Hello?" Relief and concern mingled in Keith's chest. "Beth, it's me. Where are you? I just got home," he said, striving for a casual tone. She giggled, the sound uncharacteristically brash. "Hey, baby, you landed already?" The music behind her pulsed a heavy bass, incongruent with any quiet wine night. A male laugh followed. Keith stiffened. "Bethany," he repeated, forcing calm. "It's after 2 in the morning. You said you'd be at Denise's, but that sounds like someone else." A male voice chimed in, dangerously familiar. "Corey, Keith's best friend since college." "Babe, who's on the phone?" Corey's question rang close to the microphone. A cold sweat broke on Keith's forehead. Bethany exhaled drunkenly. "Keith's just checking in." "We're good, honey. I'll be back soon." Then Corey's distinct chuckle grew louder, arrogantly so. "Bethany, hang up. Don't bore him with details. He's got his airline life. We got ours, right?" The phone rustled, and the call ended abruptly. Keith stared at the screen. heart pounding. Two replays looped in his head. Bethany's giggly tone, Corey's lazy drawl telling her to hang up. Something intangible in that moment felt deeply wrong beyond just a friend giving her a ride. He closed his eyes, anger blooming like a bruise in his chest. He sank onto the sofa, memories rushing. In another life, Corey was the guy who stood by him during their dorm room days, defending him when seniors hazed new recruits. They'd shared dreams, teased each other about girlfriends. Bethany had once joked Corey was like her big brother, but that phone call didn't sound sisterly. He recalled Bethany's bright grin the first time they met. He was a junior flight attendant, and she was working a brand collaboration for a lounge event. Their chemistry was immediate. He found her quick wit irresistible. She admired his calm, professional with a dash of adventurous, as she put it. They married in a modest ceremony, with Corey as Keith's best man and Devin Keith's stepfather figure offering paternal blessings. Now, at 2:24 a.m., everything felt like a lie. Keith's chest tightened, an ache that threatened to morph into fury. Could she be cheating on him with Corey? A swirl of betrayal tainted his recollection of Devin's cryptic statements about Bethany's new crowd. Did the father figure suspect something? He inhaled slowly. No. He needed clarity, not rash assumptions. For all he knew, Corey might just be giving her a lift. But the phone call, that laughter, the abrupt hang-up. The front door rattled with a soft knock. Startled, Keith tensed, but then recognized a neighborly silhouette. Opening it, he found Olivia, the next-door neighbor, wearing a concerned expression and a loose cardigan over pajamas. "Keith," she whispered, "I saw your light on. Everything okay?" I heard a car earlier. Thought Bethany left with someone." Keith forced a faint smile, though dread churned inside. "Yeah, she stepped out. Maybe with a friend?" Olivia hesitated. "Corey, right? I glimpsed him behind the wheel. Sorry for intruding. I just didn't seem normal at that hour." Keith's pulse jumped. "Thanks for telling me, Olivia. I appreciate it." She nodded solemnly. I once caught them chatting out front a few nights back. Seemed a bit too close, if you ask me." A storm of questions raged in his head, but he simply said, "I'll handle it." As she left, he realized how quickly suspicion was ballooning. If even the neighbor noticed, maybe it was worse than he wanted to believe. Dropping into the dining chair, Keith grabbed a notebook. In his calm, flight attendant manner, he started listing oddities. Bethany leaving wine glass half full. Corey's laugh on the phone, close enough to the mic to suggest intimacy. Olivia witnessing them together at weird hours. Denise rumored as the excuse, but no actual mention from Bethany of texting or calling Denise. He scribbled, "possible affair," at the top. Then, swallowing bitterness, he added, "check finances, check ring camera from last week." A wave of hurt threatened to drown him, but he refused to be that naive spouse who begs and pleads. No, he'd approach this methodically. He recalled father figure Devin's recent cryptic talk about people in high places. Was there more at stake than a simple cheat? He tapped on a Ring camera app, scanning the last few nights. Sure enough, he saw Corey's silhouette at 11 p.m. 2 days prior, stepping out the front door while Keith was in Tokyo for an overnight flight. The pit in his stomach grew. This wasn't a first-time slip-up. The heartbreak mutated into an iron determination. If they were playing him for a fool, he'd give them no mercy. The flight attendant inside him, trained to remain level-headed under pressure, melded with a thirst for justice. He'd find out the truth and ensure they paid for the betrayal, all of them, if more were involved. And so began his sleepless night, forging the path from unsuspecting husband to a man on the cusp of orchestrating a savage payback. Chapter 2. The next morning, Keith woke groggy yet fiercely determined. He shot Bethany a text. We need to talk. Let me know when you're home. No immediate reply. The Half-Truth phone location app showed her phone's signal across town. She was out. So Keith decided on a direct approach with Corey. Over the phone, he feigned a friendly tone. "Hey, I'm back in town. Why not grab brunch at that bistro near the airport?" Corey hesitated, then agreed, setting a noon meet. Sitting at a wrought iron table under a striped umbrella, Keith sipped iced tea, mind churning with questions. Corey eventually arrived, looking oddly frazzled. "Keith!" Corey forced a grin. "Didn't expect you back so soon." Keith shrugged. "Flight landed early. Figured I'd catch up with my old buddy." Corey fiddled with his phone. "Sure, man. Been a while. Bethany told me you had a rough schedule. Everything good?" Keith studied him carefully. The small talk felt contrived. "Yeah, everything's fine. So big night last night?" Corey blinked. "Huh? Not really. Just some business calls. You know me?" He cracked a tight laugh. "Why the interest?" "Because," Keith said, voice calm, "Bethany mentioned you gave her a ride. Then she ghosted me." Corey's eyes darted. "Oh, that. Yeah. She was hammered from a wine bar. I stepped in, didn't want her driving. Nothing scandalous." The server approached with menus, temporarily pausing the tension. Keith forced a smile, waiting for her to leave. Then, lowering his voice, he pressed, "You sure it's nothing? Because you called me a fool behind my back last night." Corey's face flushed. "What are you talking about?" Keith exhaled. "I heard you on Bethany's phone." A flicker of panic crossed Corey's features. "Look, man, that was just me joking around. We were, drunk." Keith kept steady eye contact. "Right. Drunk." A beat of silence. "Anyway, how's work? Still in that shipping business?" Corey latched onto the subject change, reciting some half-baked details about logistics expansions. Keith nodded, letting him ramble, gleaning hints about cargo deals, large commissions, father figure Devon's name surfacing inadvertently. "We do some synergy with Devon's cargo connections," Corey said, then caught himself. "But I guess you'd rather hear about other stuff." The entire conversation reeked of tension. Keith gleaned that Corey was indeed hiding something bigger, but he didn't push further. He'd gather more evidence first. Halfway through their meal, to Keith's dismay, father figure Devon strolled up to the bistro's patio. Spotting them, he exuded a casual, almost smug presence. Well, Devon said, sliding sunglasses off. "A pleasant surprise seeing the two of you." Corey fidgeted. Keith arched a brow. "Devon, didn't expect you here?" Devon gave a quick grin. "Just passing by. Mind if I join?" Without waiting, he pulled out a chair. "Sure," Keith said, tone carefully neutral. "We're just, catching up." Devon shot a glance at Corey, then shifted to Keith. "Heard you had a tough flight. Everything okay at home?" Keith suppressed an urge to show anger. "Bethany's out and about. Not sure where she ended up last night, but you know her. Always adventurous," he said, voice laced with hidden meaning. Devon nodded slowly, almost as if to say, "I know more than you?" "Yes, adventurous. She's quite the free spirit. I'd watch that if I were you, Keith. Women like her can slip away if you get too controlling." Corey choked on his coffee. Keith's jaw tightened. "Controlling? I'm hardly that. Just mindful." Devon mused. "Anyway, let's talk about something else. Corey, how's that new contract?" Corey brightened. "Oh, we just closed a big deal for cargo shipments overseas." He paused, eyeing Keith suspiciously, then forced a laugh. "But it's hush-hush. Devon's an investor, or well, you know how it goes." Keith silently took note. Another breadcrumb about cargo deals. As brunch ended, Devon insisted on footing the bill. "You two can pay me back eventually," he joked, voice flat. Or maybe you owe me in other ways." Corey offered an uneasy grin. Keith watched quietly, suspecting father figure Devon was dropping subtle intimidation. The older man patted Keith's shoulder on the way out. "Keith, maybe we can talk later. Just you and me." Devon's tone turned low. "It's about Bethany. She's got certain involvements you might not like." Keith's stomach sank, but he kept his composure. "I'm listening." Devon gave a cryptic smirk. "Not here, not now. When the time's right." Then he strode off, leaving Keith with a swirl of anger. Corey muttered something about, "Got a call to make," and hurried away too. Keith stood alone by the bistro's door, heart pounding. Father figure apparently wanted to caution him? Or was it a threat? He decided it was time to contact Denise. That afternoon, Keith met with Denise at a modest coffee shop near the airline's offices. She'd chosen a corner booth for privacy, her laptop open and phone set to record anything relevant. "Keith," she greeted softly, "sorry you're in this mess, but let's dissect it carefully. Start from the top." He recounted the awkward brunch, Devon's cryptic comments, and Corey's twitchy defensiveness. Denise sipped her cappuccino, listening intently. "So father figure Devon invests in cargo. Corey runs shipping. Bethany is in the middle, forging something with them. Smells like a hidden business or smuggling ring." He frowned. "Smuggling? That's a leap." Denise shrugged. "Maybe money laundering, maybe smuggling, or black market deals. But it's bigger than a simple affair. People who cheat often have minor secrets, but father figure plus best friend plus hush-hush cargo deals? That's large scale." Denise pulled out a notepad. "I did a preliminary search on Corey Smith's known associates. He's listed as an operations consultant for Parker Cargo, which is Devon's company. That's not typical trucking or shipping. It might involve overseas flights. And you, Keith, ironically have flight access." Keith sighed. "Meaning they might exploit my airline connection somehow?" She nodded. "You see, it's suspicious. Also, your wife might be forging your signature for documents used in cargo shipments. Possibly forging your name to claim some official airline endorsement? We need proof." His stomach twisted at the notion. That'd be a major betrayal on top of the cheating. Denise gently patted his hand. "I know this is painful, but once we confirm, you'll have the upper hand. Let's place a tracker on Bethany's phone or car, if you can." He gritted his teeth. "Yes, let's do that. I want them to bury themselves in evidence, so when I strike they have nowhere to hide." Before they parted, Keith's phone buzzed a text from Olivia. "I recorded something else last night, Corey's voice, bragging about Bethany likes me better than Keith anyway. Call me." He showed Denise. She nodded. "She's a good neighbor. Let's have her share everything with me. We'll compile it." Keith returned home to find Bethany sprawled on the couch, reading a magazine. She looked up, feigning a casual smile. "Hey, you. Sorry about last night. I was, drunk. Didn't realize the time." He set his keys on the table. "You were with Corey. That's all you'll say?" She feigned an eye roll. "It's not a crime to see Corey. We're friends." "Stop acting suspicious." He forced a short laugh. "Friends, sure. That's what it looked like from the phone call." A flicker of annoyance. "Why so jealous, Keith? Could you focus on your flights and let me have my own life?" "My flights are my job," he said evenly. "Not an excuse for you to vanish at 2 a.m. I'm just pointing out the weirdness." She pressed her lips. "I told you I was hammered. If you can't handle that, maybe we have bigger problems." He stared at her, seeing the manipulative gleam in her eye. She was testing him, half challenging him to accuse her outright. Instead, he turned away. "I'll be in the bedroom." "So that's it? You're ignoring me," she demanded. For now, yes, he said, walking off with controlled calm. She muttered something under her breath. He sensed her irritation, but no guilt or apology. Maybe she was too deep in Corey's illusions. Or maybe father figure Devon had promised her something bigger. Keith clenched his fists behind the closed door, refusing to appear weak. Late that night, Keith lay awake, recalling how Devon strolled into his life when Keith was 12. Devon married Keith's mother, Linda, a sweet woman easily charmed by big talk. For years, Keith thought Devon was protective. He helped pay for flight school, gave advice about staying calm under pressure. But there was always a sense that Devon used them, especially after Linda's passing from an illness. He remained in Keith's life, claiming paternal devotion. Maybe all along, he was grooming Keith for something. At 1 a.m., Keith's phone vibrated. Denise's voice crackled quietly. I found a lead on Parker Cargo's shipments. There's a suspicious pattern of large crates declared as miscellaneous hardware. Customs flagged them once, but Devon used connections to clear them. He swallowed. So father figure might be in illegal business, and Bethany helps cover it up with forgeries while Corey organizes the logistics? Denise exhaled. Exactly. If that's the case, you're dealing with a triad of betrayal. Your father figure, your best friend, and your wife. Keith stared at the ceiling. I want them all brought to their knees. But let's be strategic. We gather overwhelming proof first. Over the next few days, Keith stealthily reviewed joint bank accounts. Strange deposits in Bethany's separate account labeled consultation fee from a shell corporation. He cross-referenced them with shipping dates from Parker Cargo, always aligned with Keith's out-of-town flights. A pattern emerged. Whenever Keith was gone, they did more business. He confronted Bethany casually about a random deposit. She stiffened, claimed it was from a friend paying back a loan. The flimsiness of her explanation only fueled his silent rage. He pretended to believe her, scribbling it into his notebook for Denise. One afternoon, Keith swung by the local coffee shop again, spotting Corey at a table, chatting with a younger colleague about expansion plans. Keith pretended not to see them, but paused in earshot. Bethany's on board. She can get Keith's signature for anything, Corey bragged. He's oblivious, always busy with flights. Soon enough, the father figure's going to channel big shipments through us. The colleague asked, what if Keith finds out? Corey smirked, swirling his iced latte. That guy's a nice dope. Bethany has him wrapped around her finger. And if he gets nosy, Devon will handle it. Keith inwardly seethed. The best friend he once admired was a smug snake. He yearned to wipe that confidence from Corey's face, but remained outwardly calm, slipping out before being seen. Back home, Bethany tried a different tack. Acting sweet, cooking dinner, lighting candles. She welcomed him at the door with an almost seductive smile, wearing a dress he used to love. Keith, I've been so stressed. Let's just have a romantic evening, she purred, guiding him to the living room. He complied outwardly, though suspicion coiled inside him. Over dinner, she coaxed him about his flight schedule. Any big trips soon? I was thinking of redecorating, but need you out so I can surprise you, she teased. He gave a half smile. Might have a long haul next week, but not sure. Why so eager for me gone? She giggled. Don't be silly. I just want to do something special. He sipped his wine, eyes never leaving hers. Right. Special. Well, I might be around more than you think. A flicker of something in her gaze. Concern, maybe. Oh? Are you cutting flights? Possibly, he said cryptically. I want to keep an eye on things. She tried to laugh, but it rang hollow. The tension thickened. After dinner, she leaned in for a kiss, perhaps testing his willingness to remain affectionate. He returned a brief peck, then excused himself. The entire charade only confirmed her duplicity. She was either deflecting or ensuring he stayed unsuspecting. Little did she know, her intimacy attempts only hardened Keith's resolve to see her downfall. Days later, father figure Devon cornered Keith outside a grocery store. The older man's expression was grimly smug. "Keith, I hear you've been poking around, checking bank statements that aren't your business," Devon began. "You better drop it." Keith tightened his grip on the grocery bag. "You listening to rumors, or is that guilt talking?" Devon's nostrils flared. "I told you not to pry. Corey and Bethany have a good thing going both in personal and business sense. If you cause trouble, you'll only hurt yourself." Anger flared in Keith. "That's my wife, my finances, my life. You're the outsider, not me." Devon let out a sharp laugh. "Kid, I've been in your life longer than you think. I supported you, paid for your flight training, gave you advice. Don't spit on that. Some debts can't be repaid easily. I owe you nothing," Keith ground out. "Now get out of my way." Devon gave a predatory smile. "If you keep snooping, I'll see to it you lose that precious job. I have contacts in the airline. You won't pass the next background check, understand?" Keith's heart pounded, but he forced a calm smirk. "We'll see who has the last word." He brushed past, refusing to show intimidation. Inside, though, the betrayal cut deeper. Father figure was now openly threatening his career. That same evening, Keith stepped into the living room where Bethany scrolled social media. He stood in front of her, crossing his arms. "Bethany, we need an honest conversation," he began, voice steady. "What's going on with you, Corey and Devon? You all seem closer than normal." She frowned, immediately defensive. "Devon is your father figure, Keith. Are you jealous he talks to me? And Corey's just a friend. God, you're paranoid." "Stop," he snapped, letting a fraction of anger show. "I'm not paranoid. I see the suspicious finances, the hush-hush cargo talk, the forging hints." "Yes, forging. Don't lie." Her eyes flashed. "You have no proof. And forging? Seriously?" He stepped closer, lowering his voice. "If I dig deeper, I might find your signature next to mine on shady documents. This is your last chance to come clean." She inhaled sharply, then forced an eye roll. "This is insane. You're stressed from flying. Maybe you should talk to a therapist." "No." He locked gazes with her. "I'm not the one who needs therapy. If you keep lying, I'll find the truth anyway. Then you'll regret it." She stiffened, a flicker of fear crossing her features. "Do whatever you want. I'm done talking." She stormed off to the bedroom, slamming the door. Keith stood there, heart hammering. The confrontation felt inconclusive, but at least he rattled her. Let her sweat. He wasn't about to fold. Later that night, Keith's phone rang. The caller ID, unknown. He answered warily. "Keith, buddy, you're making waves," came Corey's unmistakable drawl. "Bethany's upset. She told me you're accusing her of shady stuff. Let me give you some advice, chill, or you'll lose everything. You know how Devon reacts when people step out of line." Keith's knuckles whitened. "I didn't realize you started calling Devon Dad." "Proud of yourself?" A sharp laugh. "You're missing the bigger picture. She's bored with your flight attendant life. If you can't keep her happy, someone else will. Frankly, we're just trying to—" "Shut up," Keith cut in, voice lethal. "My patience is thin. You watch your own back." Corey chuckled. "Sure. We'll see who ends up on top." The call ended, leaving Keith seething. So Corey believed he had the upper hand. Let him. Let father figure Devon and Bethany delude themselves. Heading to his desk, Keith scribbled the final notes. He had bank logs of suspicious deposits, multiple accounts from Olivia about nighttime visits, confirmation from Denise that father figure's cargo firm flagged by customs, overheard dialogue from Corey boasting about forging, the ring camera footage of Corey's late arrivals. He was forming an unstoppable case. Next step, collaborating with Denise to tie it all to a criminal ring. Then, a coordinated strike. As midnight approached, Keith gazed at the ring camera feed on his laptop. Bethany was out again, presumably with Corey or Devon. His heartbreak coalesced into an unwavering vow. They would regret crossing him. Chapter 3. A few mornings later, Keith met Denise in her small makeshift office behind a martial arts studio. The smell of sweat and rubber mats mingled with the hum of a backroom fan. But it was private enough for them to talk freely. Denise greeted him with a nod, motioning him toward a chair across a cluttered desk. She had pinned photos on a corkboard, snapshots of Corey, Devon, Bethany, plus cargo shipping manifests. A spider web of lines connected them. "Keith, let's start with these," she said, handing him a manila folder. "I pulled more data from public records. Devon's cargo company has had repeated citations for irregularities. They always got waived by a high-level contact." Keith flipped through the documents, seeing official stamps. "That means they're bribing someone, right?" She nodded. "Likely. And I found 2 shipments that align with certain nights you were overseas. Meanwhile, Bethany's bank account soared after each shipment." "God," Keith muttered, "she's not just cheating, she's actively profiting from Devon's criminal activity." Denise typed on her laptop. "I also suspect Corey manages the day-to-day. He's the logistic brains. She's forging your name for some form of airline clearance, maybe forging your ID for official shipping approvals. The father figure stands on top." A swirl of revulsion and fury churned in Keith's stomach. "We need them behind bars. All of them." They mapped out a plan. Phone taps. Insert a stealth app on Bethany's phone if possible, capturing calls with Corey or Devon. Warehouse stakeout. Monitor cargo movements at Parker Cargo's main warehouse. Financial triggers. Possibly tip off the authorities about suspicious accounts, ensuring an audit hits them simultaneously. "It's crucial. They don't suspect your involvement," Denise warned. "We want them comfortable enough to continue their operation." Keith sighed. "I have to keep playing clueless. It's disgusting, but I can act the naive husband for a while." Denise studied him. "You sure you can handle it emotionally? She might keep coming home from nights with Corey." His jaw tightened. "I'll handle it. The payoff will be worth it." In the corner, a phone beeped. Olivia arrived, stepping through the back door. She brought her own notes detailing times she heard suspicious cars or saw Bethany sneaking out. "I even got a snippet of Bethany on a phone call with Corey, complaining that Keith's getting nosy and that Devon wants to take him down a peg," Olivia reported, eyes troubled. "They're downright mocking you." Keith inhaled slowly, controlling the surge of anger. "Thank you for risking your comfort to gather this." Olivia shook her head. "I hate bullies, especially ones messing with a loyal spouse. They don't deserve an easy out." Partway through their discussion, Denise's phone rang. She answered, face turning grim. "Understood. Thanks for letting me know." She hung up, sighing. "A contact at the local precinct says father figure Devon is rumored to be tied to some bigger fish, maybe a multi-state smuggling ring. If that's true, we're dealing with more danger than expected." Keith's eyes narrowed. "So they can do real damage if they sense a threat." Denise nodded. "Yes, this could turn violent. I won't let them harm you, but be cautious. Don't confront them alone in a cornered scenario." He swallowed. The idea that father figure might hire thugs or bribe officials to silence him felt surreal. But the heartbreak of Bethany's affair overshadowed any fear. He was in too deep to back down. That evening, Bethany insisted on a special dinner at a swanky downtown restaurant, presumably trying to keep up appearances of a happy marriage. Keith wore a polite mask, letting her guide the conversation. Over the main course, she prattled about random home improvements. "I was thinking a bigger deck. Maybe we can host parties. Corey's so good with carpentry, you know." Keith forced a grin. "Is that so? He's good at many things, apparently." She blinked, thrown by his veiled sarcasm. "Why the tone, Keith?" "No reason," he said casually, cutting into his steak. "Just interesting how often his name pops up in your plans." A muscle in her cheek twitched. "You're reading into everything. Corey is a friend, plus Devin trusts him for errands. You know how that goes. My father figure is always around too, so it's a family thing." He nearly choked on a bitter laugh. Family thing indeed. "Sure, a wonderful family." He let the edge fade, swiftly changing subject. Midway through dinner, Bethany excused herself to the restroom, taking her phone along. Keith discreetly slipped a small transmitter near her purse. Step 1 in Denise's phone infiltration plan. He prayed she wouldn't notice. Later, at home, Keith texted Denise. "Device planted. Let me know if you can access." She replied a thumbs up. If all went well, they'd soon intercept calls or messages involving father figure Devin or Corey. He glimpsed Bethany pacing in the hallway, phone to ear. She sounded anxious, though the words were muffled, possibly talking to Corey about their next move. He yearned to eavesdrop, but forced himself to remain the oblivious husband, rummaging in the fridge for a glass of orange juice. At bedtime, Bethany approached him wearing a satin robe. "Keith, can we talk in bed?" Her voice carried a hint of forced sensuality. He stared at her, heart twisting. The woman he loved was cunningly using intimacy to keep him placated. Still, he mustered a neutral expression. Sure. They lay side by side, an awkward gulf between them. She traced a finger along his arm. "You've been so distant. I'm worried about us. Maybe we should take a trip, just the two of us." "A trip?" he echoed. "You want to go on vacation after ignoring me nights on end with Corey?" She flinched. "God, you're so fixated on that. He's Devin's associate, that's all." "Fine, sometimes I hang with them, shoot me. Doesn't mean I'm cheating." She paused, eyeing him. "You do trust me, right?" He nearly erupted with accusations. Instead, he rolled onto his side, facing away. "I'm tired, Beth. Let's talk tomorrow." She exhaled sharply. "If you won't fix your jealousy, I can't fix us." She turned off the lamp, the tension thick enough to choke on. In the darkness, Keith's fists clenched. She was flipping the narrative, calling him jealous or controlling. Let her do it. The more she believed he was just sulky, the less she'd suspect the storm he was preparing. 2 days later, Denise called Keith with excitement. "My hacker friend cracked partial phone logs." Devin had multiple calls to unlisted international numbers. "We suspect he's coordinating shipments with overseas smugglers." Bethany's phone logs show calls from the same numbers, sometimes right after Devin calls them. The father figure is definitely orchestrating major criminal transactions. Keith pressed a hand to his forehead. "So Bethany isn't just forging or cheating. She's actively involved in large-scale crime. She's deeper in this than I thought." Denise exhaled. "Yes. I'm sorry, Keith. But this means we can get them all indicted if we present it properly to the authorities. We need a bit more direct evidence like an actual contract or a shipping manifest with her signature." He recalled rummaging in the home office drawers. Maybe he missed something. "I'll search again. She might have hidden documents. Or I can trick her into revealing them." Olivia texted Keith an hour later. Heard from a friend. Corey booked a weekend at Lakeside Resort. Possibly with Bethany? He forwarded it to Denise. This might be their next big break covert meeting to finalize deals. They strategized. If Keith pretended to be on a long flight, Bethany might feel safe traveling with Corey to the resort, possibly signing more documents or meeting contraband partners. Meanwhile, father figure Devin might show up. That Friday, Keith told Bethany, "I got an unexpected overseas route. I'll be gone from tonight until Monday." She perked up suspiciously. "Really? That's short notice." "Yeah," he lied with a tight smile. "Crew shortage." She tried to hide her relief. "Well, best of luck. Safe travels." Inside, Keith raged at her transparent excitement. But outwardly, he kept a neutral facade. "Love you. See you Monday." "Love you too," she said, an empty ring to her words. He left the house with a small suitcase, ensuring Bethany saw him depart. Then he circled back to Denise's safe house, preparing to tail Bethany if she indeed left town with Corey. Sure enough, that evening, the transmitter on Bethany's phone signaled her heading north into Lakeside territory. Denise and Keith followed discreetly in an unremarkable sedan. They arrived at the scenic resort, overshadowed by tall pines and a calm lake. From a distance, they saw Corey's SUV parked near cabin 7. The porch lights glowed. Keith's stomach twisted, imagining them inside, possibly in bed, or discussing forging further. The betrayal on every level stoked his vengeful determination. Using specialized audio equipment, Denise caught fragments of their conversation through an open cabin window. "Bethany complaining about Keith's moodiness, but he still thinks I'm just depressed, so that's good. He's clueless." Corey retorting, "We gotta finalize these flight clearance docs. Devin wants them by next week. Once we do, we can push bigger shipments. Then you and I can enjoy the payoff. Screw Keith." A brief mention of father figure. "Devin's setting up a meeting with the cartel rep. We just need to keep Keith in the dark until it's done." Keith's nails dug into his palms, listening to the quiet night interlaced with their sinister planning. So they were forging flight clearance to smuggle contraband onto flights, possibly using his airline ID or forging documents to claim Keith-validated cargo. Denise gently squeezed his arm. "You have them. They're practically incriminating themselves." He whispered, voice shaking, "I want them destroyed." Chapter 4. Bethany believed Keith was overseas, so she spent the entire weekend at the lakeside cabin with Corey. On Sunday night, they drove back, seemingly pleased. Keith, from Denise's vantage, saw them share a lingering kiss before Bethany hopped out near a corner so neighbors wouldn't see Corey dropping her off. Bethany entered the house around 10 p.m. No idea Keith was actually in the safe house. He let her settle, then strolled in around midnight, faking a last-minute flight arrival. She feigned tiredness, half-heartedly hugging him. "You're home early?" she asked, wide-eyed. He shrugged. "Flight got canceled. Lucky me." She looked momentarily panicked, but masked it with a yawn. "That's great. Sorry, I'm exhausted. We'll talk tomorrow." Once Bethany slept, Keith quietly sneaked into the home office. Over the past week, she might have hidden more crucial docs. By rummaging behind a filing cabinet, he discovered a small locked box. After a few minutes of searching, he found the key taped under the drawer. Inside, he found forging stencils, half-completed forms referencing flight attendant clearance, repeated copies of his signature, his name, in suspicious fields. Also a slip indicating a deposit from DP Holdings of $20,000 to Bethany's account. Another deposit from Corey S. Cargo Solutions. His heart hammered. This was damning. He snapped photos, carefully returning everything. They were burying themselves in evidence. Perfect for his plan. 2 nights later, father figure Devin appeared at the front door unannounced. Bethany answered, stepping aside nervously. Keith, in the living room, feigned polite surprise. "Devin?" Keith greeted evenly. "Something urgent?" Devin scanned Keith's face. "Yeah, needed to talk business with Bethany. Mind giving us privacy?" Bethany shot Keith a pleading look as if telling him not to pry. Keith forced a chuckle. "Privacy? In my own house? Sure, father figure. I'll be in the backyard." He stepped outside but discreetly left a phone recording near the slightly ajar window. Through it he caught snippets. Devin scolding Bethany about Corey messing up the resort talk. Next time, be more discreet. Bethany whining about Keith might suspect something. He's acting weird. Devin growling, "If your husband gets too close, I'll handle him. Don't get soft. Finish forging those airline clearance docs." Keith stiffened, hearing father figure threaten him again. The old father figure who once took him fishing now casually planned to handle him if needed. After a few minutes, Devin stormed out, barely acknowledging Keith outside. Bethany pretended everything was normal, but Keith saw fear in her eyes. He said nothing, letting her squirm. Next morning, Keith, Denise, and Olivia convened in a back booth at a quiet diner. They invited one more ally, a local detective named Richard, who was known for honesty in a sometimes corrupt precinct. They laid out the forging docs, shipping logs, audio clips. Detective Richard whistled. "This is some big-time crime, not just petty fraud. You realize you could blow open a multi-state operation, but you need a rock-solid approach or Devin's lawyers might bury the evidence." Keith nodded. "We want a timed strike, possibly get federal agencies involved if it's large-scale. I just want them all pinned my father figure, my best friend, and my wife. No chance to wriggle free." "We'll do it," Denise agreed. "But let's coordinate. We need them in the act of finalizing or shipping something major. Because crossing father figure is dangerous. But we have a strong advantage. They underestimate Keith." They decided to replicate a scenario where Keith's airline credentials would be presumably used to sign off a major shipment. Meanwhile, they'd let father figure Devin, Corey, and Bethany believe Keith was away on a 3-day flight. Then, at the moment of signing, the authorities, guided by Detective Richard, would swoop in. Olivia would leak a partial story to the local paper about suspected cargo smuggling, prompting father figure to accelerate or panic. Meanwhile, Denise's hacker contact would freeze certain shell accounts, heightening the conspirators' desperation. "Desperate criminals make mistakes," Keith stated, eyes cold. "I want them to scramble, to argue among themselves, turning on each other. Then we step in." That night, Keith found Bethany in the kitchen, swirling a glass of wine, expression tense. "Keith," she began softly, "I realize we've been off. If you just let me handle my own finances and connections, we could have peace. Why can't you trust me?" He eyed her. "You're forging my name for cargo deals. You vanish at night with Corey. Devin visits like he owns the place. And you ask me to trust you?" She paled, her voice trembling. "Where'd you get such insane ideas? Did you hire a detective or something?" She tried to laugh it off, but faltered. He stepped closer, unwavering. "If I did, that's my business. You worry about yourself, Bethany." "Keith, She swallowed. "I never wanted to hurt you. But I can't handle the monotony of your flight schedules. I needed excitement." He stared, incredulous. "So cheating with Corey and forging documents is just excitement?" Her bottom lip quivered. "I'm not cheating. Don't twist it. Corey's a friend, maybe more, but only because you pushed me away. And Devin, he's guiding us." A flicker of sorrow passed through him, but he wouldn't relent. Don't blame me for your actions. Save it. Then he turned on his heel, leaving her trembling in the kitchen. The next day, Keith arranged with his airline to appear on the crew list for a transatlantic flight. In reality, he'd remain local. Bethany, Corey, and father figure Devin assumed he'd be gone. Perfect timing for them to finalize a major cargo shipment. Detective Richard readied a multi-agency task force for the sting. Denise and Olivia coordinated discreet surveillance. Sure enough, father figure Devin scheduled the big shipment for that weekend at their main warehouse. Bethany's forgery would approve the airline clearance, while Corey oversaw the loading. Before the scheduled day, Keith had a moment alone in the bedroom, gazing at a framed wedding photo. Him, Bethany, Corey as best man, and father figure Devin smiling in the background. A wave of heartbreak seized him. They had all looked so happy, so genuine. The memory was a lie. They had probably planned or joked about scamming him from the start. He clenched his jaw, reminding himself that heartbreak was now a weapon fueling his revenge. Compassion had no place here. They wanted to make him a fool. He'd let them face real consequences: prison time, reputational ruin, heartbreak. He carefully locked away that wedding photo, deciding never to gaze at it again after the sting. A final acceptance. The old Keith, trusting, loving, was gone. The new Keith was sharper, relentless, unstoppable. Late evening, father figure Devin stopped by unexpectedly, bounding into the living room as if he owned the place. Bethany rushed to greet him, all smiles. Keith, playing the clueless spouse, pretended to pack for an early flight. Devin's phone buzzed with texts. "We're set for tomorrow. Corey's verifying the crates. Bethany, you have that clearance form with Keith's signature, right?" "Yeah," she murmured, eyes flicking to Keith. "All done." He has no idea. Keith forced a yawn. "You two are talking about something?" Devin gave a thin smile. "Just a minor gig Bethany's picking up for some side money? Don't worry your pretty head." Bethany hopped in. "Yes, babe, I'm just filling out some forms so we can earn a little. You're off tomorrow, right? Big flight?" "Yep," Keith said, zipping his bag. "I'll be gone 48 hours. Have fun with your side hustle." He patted the bag, voice calm. Inside, he silently seethed at their blatant arrogance. Devin smirked, patting Keith's shoulder in a mock fatherly gesture. "Safe travels, son. Don't get caught in foreign storms." Once Devin left, Bethany followed Keith to the bedroom. "So guess you're leaving early in the morning, huh?" Her tone carried forced cheer. She tried to slip an arm around him. He nodded, indifferent. "Yes. I'll be out by 5 a.m. "Why?" She bit her lip. "No reason, we haven't connected intimately in a while. Thought maybe tonight?" Keith suppressed a grim laugh. She was offering sex to ensure he left unsuspecting. He turned, expression carefully blank. "Sorry, I'm exhausted and I need rest before the flight." "Keith, come on," she whispered, a hint of desperation. "A quick moment of closeness?" He gently but firmly removed her hand from his chest. "We're not in that place right now, Bethany. Maybe once you come clean about everything." She recoiled, eyes brimming with anger or shame. He couldn't tell. "You're impossible." He simply shrugged. "So are you." At 4:30 a.m., Keith quietly slipped out with his suitcase, ensuring Bethany heard the car's engine depart. He texted Denise. "In position. Operation is a go." Denise responded immediately. "We'll track them. Good luck." He felt an odd wave of finality. Today was the day they'd watch father figure Devin, best friend Corey, and Bethany attempt their biggest shipment, only to be ambushed by law enforcement. He found a quiet spot at a safe house to monitor. Everything was set in motion. Chapter 5. A dull pre-dawn light seeped through the curtains of Denise's safe house as Keith stood by a modest folding table covered in maps, phone records, and shipping manifests. He gently massaged his temples, fighting off exhaustion. For the past 2 nights, he'd slept barely 4 hours, sustained only by raw determination and a deep well of anger. Denise's hair pulled back into a practical ponytail, approached with a mug of coffee. "Morning, soldier," she teased, though Keith was no soldier. He was a flight attendant, ironically caught in a war against his wife, best friend, and father figure. "Thanks," Keith murmured, accepting the coffee. "Any new developments overnight?" Denise tapped a stack of papers. "Plenty. Father figure Devin and Corey arranged a final big shipment tomorrow, according to phone chatter we intercepted. Meanwhile, Bethany called Corey at midnight, fussing about forging one last set of flight clearance docs. She's anxious, but they're pushing ahead." A sharp nod from Keith. "Then we strike. How's Detective Richard?" "On board," Denise replied. "We have a small task force set. As soon as the criminals gather at the cargo warehouse, the authorities converge. We just need you to maintain your away-on-flight facade a little longer." Keith swallowed, recalling how he staged a fake departure so Bethany believed he was out of town. "I'll do it, but part of me wants to barge in and watch them fall." "Patience," Denise admonished gently. "We want the biggest blow. They'll incriminate themselves fully. Then you can see them behind bars." Keith exhaled, leaning over the table. This was the day he'd waited for, the day to dismantle everything they'd used to betray him. The dark, methodical part of him felt a spark of grim satisfaction. No more illusions. Olivia arrived shortly after sunrise, face flushed from the brisk morning air. She carried a thermos of tea and a small folder of notes. Her eyes flicked to Keith with concern. "You look determined. I guess that's good. But please remember not to take reckless risks." "I'll be careful," Keith said, voice firm. "What's new?" She opened her folder, scanning quickly. "I did one last pass around your neighborhood. Saw Corey picking up Bethany at dawn. They mentioned something about meeting Devin at the warehouse by noon. She parted ways with Corey a block from your house, presumably so neighbors wouldn't see them together." Keith's stomach twisted in revulsion. "So she's now openly lying about her schedule, playing as if she's running errands. That's fine. Let her do it." Denise nodded. "So that means we have a time frame. They gather at noon. Then the big doc signing or final transaction. Detective Richard and his men will be ready by 11:30 a.m. "We'll watch from a distance," Keith said, voice icy. "I want to see them walk into their own trap." "Exactly," Olivia agreed, handing him a discreet earpiece. "You can listen to the police feed, but please, Keith, let the professionals handle any confrontation." Keith forced a thin smile. "I won't do anything impulsive. I promise." Inside, though, he yearned to see father figure Devin's face when the ambush struck, and to see Bethany realize her cunning manipulations had failed. By late morning, Keith, Denise, and Olivia piled into an unmarked sedan. The short drive to the industrial district felt eternal. Each stoplight heightened Keith's adrenaline. He felt like a passenger in his own revenge. The vantage spot they'd chosen overlooked the broad shipping yard leading to Parker Cargo's main warehouse. "Detective Richard is in position," Denise relayed from her phone. "He's got 2 squads hidden behind the adjacent loading docks. The moment we confirm father figure Devin, Corey, and Bethany are inside, they'll move." Keith peered through binoculars, catching a glimpse of the massive steel structure. Workers bustled around crates, forklifts beeped, trucks lined up. Among them, ironically, was a legitimate shipping business. But at the heart lay the contraband ring. At precisely 11:45 a.m., a sleek SUV rumbled onto the premises, Corey at the wheel, Bethany in the passenger seat. Another fancy car, a black sedan, pulled up behind, and father figure Devon stepped out, speaking briefly to a foreman. Keith's throat constricted at the sight. He recognized Bethany in a crisp blouse, hair pinned neatly, looking every bit the business partner in her sly operation. "They're here," Olivia hissed from the driver's seat. "Just like clockwork." Denise snapped photos with a long-lens camera. "We have visual. They look relaxed. No sign of suspecting a raid." "Good," Keith muttered. "The more comfortable they are, the less prepared they'll be." From the vantage point, Keith and the team saw father figure Devon lead the group inside, flanked by Corey, who carried a briefcase. Bethany walked between them, occasionally checking her phone. They vanished into the warehouse, presumably heading to an office or staging area. Denise radioed Detective Richard. "All 3 main targets confirmed inside. We have 360 coverage. Over." The detective's voice crackled back. "Acknowledged. We're moving in 10 minutes. Maintain visuals until then." "Copy," Denise replied, adjusting her earpiece. Keith gripped the binoculars, scanning the perimeter. A swirl of emotions choked him. Heartbreak at seeing Bethany with father figure Devon like a united front, fury at Corey's swagger. But now, their downfall was minutes away. He inhaled a shaky breath, steeling himself. In the next 10 minutes, silence reigned in the car. No one spoke. Olivia occasionally glanced at Keith's tense profile. Denise double-checked recording devices. At exactly noon, a voice from the police channel spoke. "Strike team, go." The feed sizzled with movement. Officers in plain clothes began converging near the warehouse gates. Additional vehicles circled around. Denise whispered to Keith, "We'll witness it all from here. Don't leave the car until it's secure, okay?" He nodded, heart pounding. Suddenly, police cars and unmarked vans surged forth, some blocking the exits from the warehouse yard. Workers scattered, forklift drivers braking in confusion. Shouted commands echoed, "Police, freeze!" Detective Richard's squad moved methodically. Denise flipped on an audio receiver. They heard an officer yell, "We have a warrant for the arrest of Devon Parker, Corey Smith, and Bethany Daniels for suspected smuggling, money laundering, and forgery. Lay down your arms!" The tension skyrocketed. Keith's pulse hammered so loudly he barely heard the next lines. This was it, the moment father figure Devon realized his empire was crumbling, the moment Corey discovered his supposed secret ring was fully exposed. And Bethany, she'd realize her cunning illusions shattered. A forklift squealed in the background, loud over the police channel. A frantic voice, "Hold your fire, they're running to the side office!" Then an officer yelled, "Suspect brandished a weapon, put it down!" Keith froze. A weapon? Could father figure Devon be armed? For a moment, fear overshadowed rage. He didn't want anyone killed. Then came a policeman's shout, "Weapon on the ground! All suspects in custody! Repeat, no shots fired!" Denise exhaled sharply, tension deflating. "Thank God! We don't want bloodshed. Looks like they surrendered." Olivia peered out, scanning with binoculars at the warehouse entrance. "I see them bringing out father figure Devon in handcuffs, Corey. Oh, there's Bethany." Keith took the binoculars, breath catching. Sure enough, Bethany emerged between 2 officers, hands cuffed behind her back, eyes wide with terror. He watched her lips move, presumably protesting or blaming others. Corey stumbled behind her, face twisted in anger. Father figure Devon marched in front defiant, cursing at the officers. "They've got them," Keith whispered, voice thick. Part of him felt heartbreak seeing Bethany's tear-stained face. Another part reveled in grim satisfaction she chose her path. Denise laid a hand on his shoulder. "This is what you wanted. They'll face legal consequences. You did it." Through the policeman's radio, father figure Devin's shouts crackled. "Who set us up? We had everything locked down. I want my lawyer." Corey's voice joined. "You can't do this. We're legitimate business owners." Detective Richards' measured tone. "You'll have plenty of time to explain behind bars. We have every doc, every piece of forging. Enough. Now, move." Bethany sobbed. "Where's Keith? He's away. You can't accuse him of anything he's not involved." She seemed to be distancing him, ironically a twisted attempt at protecting him, or at least absolving him of involvement. Keith set the binoculars down, swallowing a lump in his throat. He'd fantasized about confronting them face to face, but seeing them dragged out like criminals still shocked his system. The woman he once loved, now a sobbing conspirator. The father figure he once admired, now spewing threats at the cops. The best friend Corey, red-faced and frantic. I want to go over there," Keith muttered. Denise shook her head firmly. "Not yet. Let them get processed. We'll meet Detective Richard inside after the area is secured. No point risking a scene or giving them a chance to lash out at you personally." He exhaled, letting logic override emotion. "Fine." Within 15 minutes, the entire operation subdued. Police lined the perimeter, staff members were questioned, crates opened, contraband stashes discovered, record books uncovered. Keith, Denise, and Olivia stepped out of the car, approaching cautiously. An officer recognized Denise from prior detective work, nodding them through. Detective Richard emerged, wearing a bulletproof vest labeled police, expression grim but triumphant. He beckoned them aside. "We found a trove. Guns in crates, narcotics, false ID materials," Richard reported. "Your father figure, Devin, is the alleged ringleader." Corey aided. "Bethany is implicated in forging Keith's signature for shipping clearance. It's all spelled out in the docs we seized." Keith listened quietly, gratitude mixing with revulsion. So they're cornered. Detective Richard led them deeper into the warehouse's interior. Stacks of crates, half-labeled machinery, revealed contraband. Soon they reached a makeshift office turned chaos of scattered files. Father figure Devin, Corey, and Bethany were each cuffed to separate chairs, supervised by armed officers. Devin's nostrils flared at the sight of Keith. "You traitor!" he snarled, spittle flying. "I can't believe you'd do this to me after all I did for you." Keith's voice turned cold. "You threatened me, manipulated me, and used me. This is your consequence." Corey glowered. "You lying piece of crap pretending you were clueless while you set us up?" Keith shrugged, lip curling. "Maybe you shouldn't have called me a fool behind my back, Corey." Bethany, eyes red and tear-streaked, stared at Keith. "Please, you can't let them arrest me. I never wanted to break the law, I just did what Devin said. Corey pressured me, too. I didn't cheat, not how you think I—" He stepped closer, ignoring the police officer's watchful glare. "Stop. I heard your calls, saw your forged documents, your midnight meetups. You destroyed our marriage, your own conscience, for money or excitement or both." She sobbed. "I still love you, Keith. I only turned to them because you were never home. It got out of hand. I swear. I never meant—" "You made your bed," he said icily. "Now lie in it." The tension rose. Father figure Devin spat curses. Corey glared. Bethany sobbed. Keith felt his composure cracking inside, but he refused to show any weakness. Some officers shot him sympathetic looks, likely recognizing him as the scorned spouse who cooperated with the investigation. He turned away from them, swallowing a tumult of grief and betrayal. Denise placed a comforting hand on his back. "You did the right thing, Keith. This is on them, not you." He nodded, exhaling shakily. No matter how much he longed for them to face justice, it still hurt seeing Bethany's tearful meltdown. But it was too late for pity. They would face the legal system. The father figure, best friend, and wife who united to degrade him. Now they were the ones in chains. Over the next hour, the police gathered boxes of evidence from the warehouse. Detective Richard showed Keith a few damning items. Shipping logs listing flight clearance by Keith Daniels. Audio recordings on a warehouse computer referencing Bethany forging sign-off for flight attendant oversight. A ledger containing payoff, amounts to cover up flagged shipments. "It's all here," Richard said, patting the stack. The father figure's network spanned multiple states. Corey was the day-to-day manager. Bethany handled the forgery. You, ironically, were the only legitimate flight attendant name used for illusions of airline compliance. Keith's shoulders tensed. "So they built their scheme around my job?" "Yeah," the detective sighed. "And from the records, it's been going on for months. Maybe a year. The difference is it escalated recently, which drew more attention from customs and from your side." Denise, sifting through a separate box, called out, "Keith, you might want to see this." She held up a folder labeled Private Family. Inside were photos of Keith and Devon at old family gatherings, scrawled notes about potential use of Keith's airline connections from years back. Keith grimaced, flipping through. "He planned to exploit me from day one. The father figure role was a front." Denise nodded sympathetically. "Yes, but it's over. This folder proves premeditation, which kills any argument of you being complicit. It also cements Devon's betrayal." Amid the chaos, an officer approached them. "Corey wants to talk, says he'll confess everything if it gets him a lighter sentence." The officer rolled his eyes. "He's frantic, blaming Devon and Bethany." Keith and Denise exchanged glances. Denise said, "We don't have to indulge. Let the detective handle that. Corey's just a rat trying to save his skin." "Agreed," Keith said grimly. "He can rot for all I care." As they stepped outside, Bethany called after Keith, voice echoing in the metal corridor. "Keith! Don't walk away!" He halted, turning slowly. She was still cuffed, guarded by a female officer, tears carving streaks down her cheeks. "What do you want, Bethany?" I never wanted this. I only wanted more excitement, more money. Devon promised big returns. Corey offered me affection you never did." Keith cut her off with a humorless laugh. "Stop blaming me. You lied, manipulated, cheated, laundered. Now you pay." She trembled, voice cracking. "Can you at least I love you, despite everything? Please, I'll testify that Devon forced me, that Corey Don't! He snapped. "I'm done! This marriage ended the moment you chose them over me." Her tears intensified. "You can't just wash away everything we had." "I can," he said quietly, "because you already did." The officer nudged her to move along. She stumbled forward, still pleading. Keith turned away, letting the heartbreak fuel his stoic stance. By late afternoon, the raid concluded. The criminals were transported downtown for booking. Keith hovered near the parking lot, gazing at the half-sealed crates. Part of him felt a wave of triumph. The father figure's empire in shambles, best friend Corey taken in cuffs, wife Bethany forced to face justice. Another part felt numb. Denise approached, handing him a bottle of water. "You okay?" "Usually people expect euphoria, but it's often an empty feeling." He sipped slowly, eyes distant. "Euphoria is overshadowed by betrayal. I still can't fathom how they teamed up against me so thoroughly." "You'll process it in time," Denise assured. "We'll have to prepare for the legal side. Trials can be messy. They might try to smear you to reduce their sentences." Keith's gaze hardened. "Let them try. Our evidence is rock solid. I'm willing to testify. And after that, I'll move on. I want them to rot behind bars." Detective Richard emerged, wiping sweat from his brow. We found drugs, laundered cash, forged airline documents, plus shipping logs. Enough for multiple felony charges. The father figure's looking at decades in prison. Corey as well. Bethany's role might net her a lesser, but still significant sentence: complicity, forgery, etc. Keith's heart clenched hearing the final line. She'll do time then. Good. She earned it. Richard gave him a sympathetic look. I know it's personal, but trust me, it's best that justice be impartial. She'll face consequences, no doubt. As they walked away from the warehouse, Olivia gently touched Keith's arm. I'm proud of you for standing firm. Many spouses crumble, letting the cheater manipulate them. You exposed a huge ring. Thanks, Keith said softly. It wasn't just me, your help. Denise's, the detectives. But I won't let them claim victimhood. They manipulated me for too long. She nodded, voice hushed. Still, you might need emotional support. This can be traumatizing. He inhaled, nodding. I'll handle it. Right now, I just want them gone from my life forever. Finally, the police declared the area secured. Keith, Denise, and Olivia returned to the safe house to debrief. The sun dipped below the horizon, painting the sky in bruised oranges and purples. A day that began in dread ended with father figure Devon, Corey, and Bethany behind bars. Inside the safe house, Keith collapsed onto a couch, phone lighting up with messages from flight attendant colleagues. Word spread that a big criminal bust involved Keith's father figure. He responded with short statements, refusing to detail anything. Denise grabbed a folding chair sitting across from him. You did it, Keith. That was the big blow. But the aftermath trial, media coverage might be rocky. Are you up for it? He exhaled heavily, rubbing his temples. I have to be. They tried to ruin my life. I'll see this through to the end. Indeed, news alerts popped on Olivia's phone. Breaking. Massive smuggling ring busted. Father figure to a local flight attendant indicted. Another headline teased. Scandal. Wife. Best friend. Father figure indicted in bizarre betrayal-laced sting. It's begun, Olivia muttered. You're about to be the center of a media circus. Keith's lips tightened. I'll give minimal statements. Let the facts speak. I'll remain the victim-turned-witness, that's all. At 10 p.m., a prison phone system message arrived on Keith's phone, indicating an inmate request Bethany wanted to call him. Keith stared at the notification, pulse pounding. Did he want to hear her pleas? Denise asked quietly. Are you going to accept it? No. He pressed decline. She can speak to her lawyer, not me. He set his phone aside, mind swirling with conflicting emotions. The woman he once adored was locked in a cell. But she'd chosen that path. Now, he chose to sever ties. In the quiet hush of the safe house, Keith finally let out a ragged breath. I guess that's it for now. They're caught. The next step is the legal war. Denise placed a gentle hand on his shoulder. We'll gather the best evidence. The prosecution will rely on your testimony and the trove of documents we found. They'll likely take a few weeks to press formal charges, then schedule the trial. Meanwhile, father figure Corey and Bethany remain in custody or post bail if the judge allows. But with the severity of the charges, bail might be steep or denied. He nodded, face set in stern lines. They'll face it. I never thought my life would turn into this. Betrayal often blindsides us, Olivia said softly from across the room. But you're forging a new path. You showed them you're no easy victim. That's something. Keith attempted a small smile. Thanks. Let's see how they handle prison cells. It's the least they deserve. Chapter 6. Sunlight crawled across the shabby living room in Denise's safe house, highlighting the dust motes drifting in the hush. Keith stood at the small window, arms folded, gaze unfocused on the quiet suburban street. He'd hardly slept since the warehouse raid the day before, haunted by the sight of father figure Devon snarling in cuffs, best friend Corey seething with betrayal, and wife Bethany sobbing hysterically. A swirl of triumph and grief churned in his chest. He'd wanted them exposed, but the emotional backlash was heavier than he imagined. That final image of Bethany eyes brimming with tears, wailing his name, played in his mind. Yet every pang of sorrow was tempered by the memory of her forging his signature, laughing with Corey, kissing Devon behind closed doors. He reminded himself that they forced this outcome. Denise entered from the adjoining kitchen, offering him a mug of black coffee. "Morning? Or as good as morning can get?" she said quietly. She was wearing casual cargo pants and a worn t-shirt, hair still damp from a quick shower. The lines under her eyes spoke of exhaustion, too. "Thanks," Keith murmured, sipping. The bitterness suited his mood. "Any updates from Detective Richard?" She set her phone on the coffee table. "He's at the station. They're finalizing charges. Preliminary is smuggling, money laundering, forgery, conspiracy. They found enough evidence to hold Devon and Corey without bail, particularly with ties to bigger criminal rings. Bethany might get a bail hearing, but the forging and the financial logs implicate her strongly. It's up to the judge." Keith exhaled slowly. "Good. I want them locked away. All of them." Denise nodded, reading the steely resolve on his face. "Just be prepared for the next phase. Trials can be lengthy. They might try to smear your name to cut a deal." He gave a half-smile that didn't reach his eyes. "Let them. We have every doc, every witness. I'm not scared." A soft knock on the door. Denise opened it to reveal Olivia, face drawn but determined. She slipped in, scanning the room. "Hey, sorry if I'm early." "No worries," Keith said. "We can't exactly sleep in these days." She handed them a folded newspaper, pointing to the front page article. "Massive smuggling bust shakes local cargo industry." A subheadline read, "Flight attendant's father figure among those charged." The article included references to money laundering, drug routes, and unnamed accomplices. "The paper's still trying to figure out the angle on the affair," Olivia noted. "They suspect personal drama, but aren't certain. I can push the narrative that you, Keith, are purely a victim." Keith scanned the text, heart pounding at the mention of father figure's betrayal. "Thanks for your help. I appreciate your subtle approach. I just don't want the tabloids feasting on the personal side, though they probably will eventually." Olivia patted his shoulder. "We'll manage it. I can help shape coverage so you don't get crucified." As Olivia and Denise discussed strategy, Keith drifted into his thoughts. The abrupt, brutal collapse of father figure Devon, friend Corey, and wife Bethany felt almost surreal. The months leading to this moment had been like a slow burn of heartbreak and fury. Now that they were in custody, the question remained: what next? He recognized that the legal battles would be intense. Their lawyers might try to spin him as a conspirator or claim he knew all along, or Bethany might try to manipulate him again, pleading for leniency. He couldn't afford any illusions. Returning to the table, Denise spread out a rough timeline. Arraignment. The suspects appear before a judge to hear charges. Bail hearings. The judge decides who gets bail. Indictment. Pretrial. Evidence is presented. Deals might be offered. Full trial. If they don't plead guilty. "Your testimony, Keith, is crucial," she explained. "They used your flight credentials, your signature. The prosecution will want your statement about how you discovered the forgery and how you recorded them. We have a strong case." Keith's chest tightened. "I'll stand firm. No mercy, no deals. If Bethany tries to say she was coerced, I'll reveal all the times she bragged about forging, all the calls with Corey." Denise nodded. "Exactly. Just keep your composure on the stand. They might attempt to rattle you emotionally, bringing up your personal relationship with each suspect. Don't let them." He inhaled, nodding. "They took everything from me. Now they face the cost." Olivia raised a brow. What if father figure Devon tries to flip on Corey or the bigger fish? Or Corey flips on Devon? They might reduce their sentences by giving up other criminals. "They can flip all they want," Keith said coldly. "They'll still be guilty of betraying me, and the evidence is ironclad. Even if they squeak out less prison time, they won't escape total ruin." He felt that righteous anger swirl. They wouldn't walk free. The father figure's empire was gone. Corey's arrogance was shattered. Bethany's illusions of high life were dead. If they got a slightly lesser sentence, so be it. They'd still lose everything. As evening fell, the three parted ways. Keith insisted on staying at the safe house for a while longer, not returning to the marital home haunted by Bethany's memories. He needed distance from those rooms where she'd once claimed love, while simultaneously conspiring with Corey and father figure Devon. Alone in the small bedroom, he stared at the plain walls. He realized that beyond the revenge, he had to rebuild his life. Maybe keep working for the airline or possibly find a new start. But first, the trial. He drifted to an uneasy sleep, images of Bethany's tear-streaked face warring with the memory of her forging his signature. Even in dreams, the betrayal repeated in loops, fueling his vow never to trust so blindly again. 3 days later, bright sunshine lit the steps of the county courthouse. A throng of reporters, curious onlookers, and law enforcement milled around the entrance. Keith arrived in a dark suit, face grim but steady. By his side, Denise walked with quiet confidence, while Olivia hovered further back, phone in hand to handle any media queries. The father figure Devon, Corey, and Bethany were slated for an arraignment, the formal reading of their charges. The judge would decide on bail or continued detention. Keith felt tension coil in his gut. This was his first face-to-face with them since the warehouse fiasco. In the marble-floored lobby, Detective Richard approached, offering a respectful nod. "Keith, you okay? This can be overwhelming." "I'm fine," Keith said, voice clipped. "Just want them to see me standing tall." Richard gave him a half-smile. "That's the spirit. We've got your back if they try anything." Seated in the front row behind the prosecution, Keith scanned the defense table. Father figure Devon, wearing an orange jumpsuit, hair disheveled, exuding contempt. Next to him, Corey, equally shackled, glaring daggers at Keith, and Bethany looking drained, eyes darting nervously as she caught Keith's gaze. She attempted a pleading look, but he gave no reaction. The bailiff announced, "All rise for the Honorable Judge Hightower." They rose. The judge, an older woman with sharp eyes, took her seat. "Be seated," she commanded. Then the formalities, stating names, reading charges, the summary of evidence. The air felt thick with tension. A stern-faced prosecutor stood, enumerating the allegations: smuggling, money laundering, forging official airline documents, conspiracy, etc. The judge's expression hardened with each mention. She occasionally glanced at the defendants with disapproval. "Given the severity and potential flight risk, we request no bail for Devon Parker and Corey Smith, as well as a high bail for Bethany Daniels," the prosecutor concluded. Bethany's attorney interjected, "We contest that. Mrs. Daniels is no flight risk. She was coerced by these men. She should be released on minimal bail." Keith clenched his fist at the coerced claim. She wasn't coerced when kissing Corey or forging docs with father figure's knowledge. Devon's attorney tried painting him as a legitimate businessman, claiming the contraband was planted, but the evidence was too massive to wave off. Corey's lawyer argued Corey was just following orders, but the prosecution pointed out his active role. Bethany's counsel insisted she was a mere pawn in a family scheme, referencing father figure Devon's dominance. Keith forced himself not to stand up and shout. She'd been an active collaborator. After an hour of back and forth, the judge consulted the thick stack of evidence. There's ample reason to believe Devon Parker and Corey Smith orchestrated a substantial criminal enterprise. They are remanded without bail. As for Bethany Daniels, the forging allegations are serious, but not to the same leadership extent. I'm setting bail at $200,000. House arrest with an ankle monitor if posted. Bethany visibly sagged, relief tinted with fear. Corey cursed under his breath. Devon stared at the judge with undisguised fury. Next hearing is set for formal indictment in 2 weeks, the judge announced, gavel striking. As they filed out, Keith lingered in the hallway. Corey, flanked by deputies, spat, "You bastard, you planned this all along," but was dragged away before Keith responded. Father figure Devon gave a menacing glare, muttering something that Keith couldn't catch. Bethany was escorted separately, looking wide-eyed and sorrowful. For a moment, her gaze locked on Keith. She mouthed something like, "Please," but he turned away. Denise joined him, expression tight. "All talk. They can't hurt you from in there." "I know," Keith said quietly, "but I'm not naive. They might still have some reach." She placed a hand on his elbow. "We'll keep watch." A day after the arraignment, someone posted Bethany's bail, possibly money from some leftover hidden stash. By late afternoon, she arrived at the marital house, wearing an ankle monitor. She found Keith in the living room, arms folded. Olivia was also there, silently documenting any suspicious moves. Bethany tried a shaky smile. "Keith, can we talk? I had nowhere else to go. My mother's out of state. And the court said I must remain under house arrest. This house is in my name, too." He clenched his jaw. "Fine. But don't expect a warm welcome." She looked at Olivia. "Do we need an audience?" "Yes," Keith said coldly. "I don't trust you alone. And Olivia is here to ensure you can't accuse me of anything." Bethany's eyes flickered with dismay. "You think I'd lie about domestic abuse or something? You told half the world I was controlling, so..." "Yes," he retorted. They sat in the living room, silence thick. Bethany shifted on the couch, fiddling with the ankle monitor. Keith stood by the window, arms crossed. Olivia perched discreetly in a corner, phone at the ready. "Keith," Bethany began softly, "I know you hate me, but I have to explain this scheme with father figure Devon. It got out of control. I never wanted to go so deep. Corey said it would be a quick money grab. Then Devon threatened us if we tried to back out. It wasn't about destroying you. It was about survival. Or so I thought." Keith let out a hollow laugh. "Survival? You spent hush money on lavish getaways, spa visits, fancy clothes. That's not survival, that's greed. And you also cheated with Corey." She flushed. He was there when you weren't. I felt lonely." "Stop justifying," he snapped. "You lied. You forged. Don't feed me sob stories." Bethany's eyes brimmed with tears. "I know. I messed up, big time. But the father figure, you know how manipulative he is. He threatened to ruin us if we didn't comply." "And what about your betrayal with Corey, the man who once was my best friend?" Keith demanded, voice shaking with suppressed rage. She swallowed. "It started as an emotional crutch, then turned physical. I'm not excusing it. I'm so sorry." Olivia cleared her throat, tension thick. "Bethany, How can you claim father figure forced you, but also say you were forging docs for big payoffs? Doesn't sound like you were forced at gunpoint? Bethany's face twisted. Maybe I enjoyed the money at first, but father figure Devin eventually threatened if I didn't sign, I'd lose everything. So I felt trapped. Keith turned away, disgust gnawing at him. You felt trapped? Did you think about how trapped I'd feel used as a front for your crimes? Bethany's cheeks flamed. She bowed her head, tears dripping onto her lap. I was weak. I let greed and excitement overshadow my marriage. I never truly stopped loving you, Keith. Please believe that. A storm of conflicting emotions raged in him. For a moment he recalled the sweet woman he married, but the months of lies overshadowed any nostalgia. It's too late, he said flatly. We share a house for now because of bail conditions, but this marriage is over. The second the trial ends, I'm filing for divorce. She let out a strangled sob, burying her face in her hands. Olivia remained stoic, filming or at least recording everything, in case Bethany tried to spin a future narrative. Over the next few days, Bethany lurked around the house under strict court instructions. She occasionally tried cooking or cleaning, presumably hoping to earn Keith's sympathy. He gave her none, responding only with curt nods. She'd attempt conversation. We could talk about your next flight, or do you want me to do your laundry? He'd respond with single words or non-committal shrugs. The emotional gulf was vast, and her repeated apologies rang hollow. She seemed more terrified of prison than genuinely remorseful. Keith spent nights at the safe house or sometimes crashed at a friend's. The house felt tainted. He'd only pop in to gather clothes or confront Bethany if needed. Olivia or Denise was often present to ensure no meltdown or false claim. One evening, as Keith stepped in, he overheard Bethany on the phone. She was in the kitchen, whispering frantically, "Corey, I can't talk long. Keith might be listening, but I'm sorry we got caught. You know, father figure Devin manipulated us. We have to blame him in court. I know. I still care about you, but it's complicated. Fine. Bye." Keith's stomach churned. Even now, she was calling Corey in jail, pledging what? Regret? Affection? She ended the call, startled when she spotted Keith standing in the hallway. "Eavesdropping?" she asked, cheeks flushed. He leveled a glare. "You're insane if you think any sweet words to Corey will fix your predicament. He's behind bars for a reason." She pressed her lips. I was just clarifying we should both blame father figure Devin. That's all." He muttered. "Maybe you want Corey to keep quiet about your deeper involvement?" Her eyes flickered. "You have no idea the pressure father figure put on us." He let out a short laugh. "I've heard it all. I'll see you at trial." She slumped as he strode away, her attempts to salvage alliances evidently faltering. The next day, Keith joined Denise and Detective Richard in a meeting with the county prosecutor handling the father figure Devin's case. The prosecutor, a sharp-eyed man named Michael Zahn, greeted Keith politely, acknowledging the massive personal stake he had in the matter. They spent 2 hours reviewing the collected evidence: digital logs, shipping manifests, forging docs, recorded calls. Zahn was impressed. "This is unusually complete for a conspiracy case. Usually we only get partial evidence, but you've handed us a gold mine." "We want them convicted," Keith said bluntly. "All of them." Zahn nodded. "They will be, if we handle this properly. Trials can be tricky. Defense lawyers might push for separate trials, claim father figure Devin coerced Corey or Bethany. But we'll emphasize how each had an active role." Denise asked about timing. Zahn expected the formal trial might start in 2 months if the defendants didn't strike a plea deal first. They might hold preliminary hearings for each defendant's bail or negotiated pleas. A few days later, the rumor mill churned. Father figure Devon might try to cut a deal with federal agencies, naming higher-level smugglers in exchange for a reduced sentence. Corey similarly expressed willingness to talk. Bethany's position was ambiguous. Some said she'd blame both men. Keith refused to be unsettled. Whatever deals they make, they won't walk free. I want them to face the forging, the betrayal, everything. Denise patted his shoulder. They might reduce some charges, but as the victim and star witness, you can push for strict accountability. The court usually listens to the victim's stance. He nodded. I'll show the court how they systematically exploited me. Meanwhile, local media began a frenzy about the love triangle-turned-smuggling ring. Despite Olivia's attempt to keep focus on the criminal aspects, tabloids latched onto the juicy angle. Flight attendant betrayed by father figure, wife, and best friend. Some headlines sensationalized it as a lurid soap opera, complete with rumors about Bethany's 2 lovers. Keith found it vile, but let Olivia handle the PR. She emphasized the large-scale crime, not the personal scandal. Still, he couldn't stop tabloids from calling him the clueless husband. That only added fuel to his determination to stand tall. Late one night, Keith returned to gather some flight uniforms. Bethany approached him in the hallway, eyes red. Keith, can we please talk? 5 minutes? You have 2, he said flatly. She fiddled with her hair. I spoke to my lawyer. He says if I can show I was coerced or threatened, I might avoid a harsh sentence. I need your help. If you testify that father figure Devon manipulated me, he barked a short laugh. Testify for you? Absolutely not. You manipulated me, too. You had an affair with Corey. You forged my name. Stop pretending you're a helpless victim. Her tears glimmered. But I am, in a way. Devon's a master manipulator. Corey sweet-talked me. I got trapped. I still love... Stop, he snapped. Don't misuse the word love. You want me to lie on the stand so you can walk away free? Not happening. You destroyed your credibility with me the day you hopped into Corey's bed. Enough. She stifled a sob, stepping closer. Please, Keith. If you had any feelings left, all gone, he said coldly, sidestepping her. Now get out of my way. She sank to the floor, weeping softly, as he left for the safe house, unwavering in his resolve. The following week, a family lawyer representing Bethany tried contacting Keith. He requested a private meeting to resolve marital property disputes. Keith nearly laughed. The house was half hers legally, but he had no intention of cooperating until after the trial. He suspected they wanted a quick settlement so she could pay for better legal defense. I told him no, Keith told Denise, pacing the safe house. I'm not helping her raise funds to dodge justice. Denise nodded. Smart. Let them stay cornered. If she can't hire top-tier attorneys, the prosecution's job is easier. One morning, a thick envelope arrived for Keith from the county jail. Inside were multiple handwritten pages from Corey, evidently seeking to vent or manipulate. Keith, man, it's messed up you turned us in. We were always bros. I only got close to Bethany because you neglected her. She needed comfort, and father figure Devon roped me into the cargo deals. Don't blame me fully. If you help me pin everything on Devon, I might back you up that Bethany was more involved than we realized. Reading them, Keith's lip curled in disgust. Corey was vacillating between guilt-tripping and blackmail. Keith tossed the pages aside, not even dignifying them with a response. Let Corey rot. Time marched on. Over the next 8 weeks, the legal system churned. Investigators found more evidence linking father figure Devon to a broader smuggling network. Some mid-level criminals were also arrested. The swirl of plea negotiations continued. Some rumored father figure Devon might name overseas suppliers, but the DA wasn't budging on the forging charges or the personal betrayal aspect, partly because Keith insisted no leniency be given. Bethany remained on house arrest, ankle monitor buzzing whenever she ventured outside. She tried multiple times to corner Keith at home. He avoided her, spending minimal time in that house. The tension soared whenever they briefly crossed paths. Keith, though unflinching outwardly, felt the emotional toll. Each flight he worked, colleagues asked gentle questions, some offering sympathy, others gossiping. He kept answers short, focusing on his tasks. The quiet heartbreak simmered beneath the surface. Late at night, in the safe house or a hotel layover, he stared at old wedding photos, remembering a time he believed Bethany loved him. Now, those memories spurred only anger. Denise remained a steadfast ally, preparing him for the rigors of testifying. She drilled him on how defense lawyers might twist his words, how father figure Devon's counsel might claim Keith had knowledge of the shipments. She taught him to keep calm, provide direct answers, and let the prosecution's evidence handle the heavy lifting. "They'll try emotional angles," she warned. "Don't let them shame you for missing signs or suggest you secretly endorsed the smuggling. Just reiterate you discovered the betrayal, recorded the calls, approached law enforcement." Keith nodded, absorbing every tip. Her unwavering presence made him wonder how he ever trusted father figure Devon or best friend Corey more than someone like Denise. She at least was loyal. Finally, the pre-trial hearing day arrived. Keith and Denise arrived early. The corridors bustled with reporters and spectators, the case having drawn public interest. Father figure Devon's lawyer, a slick-dressed man named Bernard Gray, was rumored to be ruthless in cross-examination. Corey had a cheaper attorney, less reputed. Bethany had a timid public defender after failing to pay for a private one. That ironically pleased Keith, ensuring she had no top-tier manipulator. In the hearing, father figure Devon's attorney argued for a separate trial, claiming Devon's actions were distinct from Corey's or Bethany's. Corey's attorney echoed a similar motion. The prosecution objected, stating all three conspired in the same smuggling ring and forging scheme. Bethany's counsel quietly added she'd prefer a separate trial to show how father figure Devon coerced her. The judge, after reviewing the evidence, ruled that the conspirators faced identical charges based on identical incidents, so they'd have a joint trial. A small victory for Keith. Bethany's lawyer asked for relaxed house arrest conditions, claiming she needed freedom to gather evidence for her defense. The prosecutor opposed, citing the risk of her tampering with evidence. The judge compromised. She'd keep the ankle monitor but could visit her mother's place under police-approved schedules. Keith inwardly shrugged. He no longer cared if she hopped between houses, she was trapped in the system either way. At one point, father figure Devon turned in the defendant's seat, locked eyes with Keith across the courtroom. His glare radiated betrayal. Keith stared back unblinking, letting Devon see no hint of remorse. The older man's lips curled in a silent snarl. Then the bailiff nudged him to face forward. After the hearing, reporters besieged Keith. "Mr. Daniels, any comment on father figure Devon's attempt to separate trials? How do you feel about your wife's possible defense of coercion?" He offered no statement beyond, "Justice will run its course," then walked away. Denise shielded him from persistent cameras, Olivia discreetly filming any confrontation to ensure no one twisted Keith's words. One evening after finishing a flight, Keith took a decisive step, contacting a reputable divorce attorney named Marcia. He laid out the entire betrayal scenario. She listened intently. "Bethany is indicted on felony charges," Marcia said. "That complicates the division of assets. Typically, if she's convicted, you have a stronger stance to retain the marital home. but we might still need to finalize a settlement. She can't be forced to sign if she's in prison, though. We'll approach it systematically." Keith nodded. "I want a clean break. The house is half mine, but I'd rather sell it or keep it if I can. I refuse to let her claim spousal support or anything." Marcia exhaled. "Given her criminal indictment, spousal support is unlikely. Just be patient. Usually, we wait until after the trial, but you can start the process now." He signed the initial paperwork, feeling a grim sense of finality. The marriage was truly over. Next, he'd watch her face the law's wrath. Bethany discovered the divorce filing through official channels. She confronted Keith at the house, trembling. "You want a divorce while I'm under house arrest? Couldn't we talk first?" "No," Keith said flatly. "We're long past talking. You conspired with father figure Devon, cheated with Corey, forged my name. There's no marriage left." She sank into a kitchen chair. I guess I can't blame you, but it's all happening so fast. I'm scared, Keith. Don't you have any leftover compassion?" He bit back a retort. For a moment, he glimpsed the vulnerability he once cherished in her, but the memory of her deceit overshadowed it. "It's too late, Bethany. I'm done." She tried another angle. "If you testify on my behalf that I was coerced, or if you encourage the DA to go light on me, maybe we can talk about salvaging something in the marriage, or at least drop the divorce until after the trial." He stared in disbelief. "Are you out of your mind? You want me to sabotage justice so you can get a lesser sentence, and in return, you'd maybe not fight the divorce? That's manipulation, pure and simple." She pressed her lips, tears welling. "I'm desperate, Keith. I can't face years in prison." "You should have considered that before forging my name and sleeping with Corey," he snapped, turning his back. Conversation over. She wept quietly, but he strode out, heart-hardened. This was her bed, she'd lie in it alone. Days later, news broke that father figure Devon had replaced his initial attorney with a well-known, high-powered defense lawyer named Lorraine Keller. She specialized in white-collar crime, rumored to be cunning and ruthless. The rumor mill suggested Devon's associates, or leftover funds, financed it. Keith braced for a more intense legal fight. Keith, Denise, and Detective Richard convened once more. Denise explained, "Lorraine Keller is notorious for painting the accused as misunderstood entrepreneurs, shifting blame onto alleged underlings or claiming incompetent oversight. She'll probably say father figure Devon had no idea contraband was being shipped. She might also claim Corey was the real culprit, or that Bethany forged docs without Devon's knowledge." Richard frowned. "But we have direct recordings of Devon instructing them, plus the warehouse discovery. Keller might attempt to discredit them as out of context. We must ensure everything's clearly authenticated." Keith clenched his fists. "We must not let father figure Devon slip through. He threatened me. He orchestrated everything." Denise nodded. "We'll emphasize that, plus we have your testimony on the intimidation. The synergy of evidence is strong." Meanwhile, Corey stuck to his lesser attorney, possibly hoping father figure Devon's high-profile counsel would overshadow him. Corey might rely on a strategy of, "I was following Devon's orders," which the prosecution easily refuted, with documents showing Corey's active role. Keith had no sympathy for the friend who lied to him for so long. 2 months after the raid, the official grand jury indicted father figure Devon, Corey, and Bethany on multiple felony counts. The formal trial was set to begin in a few weeks. The tension soared in Keith's circle. He read the indictment's language, heart-pounding. Defendants collectively conspired to transport illegal goods via forged flight clearances attributed to Keith Daniels. They laundered funds through Parker Cargo. Bethany Daniels used her relationship with Keith Daniels to gain access to airline documentation. It was all spelled out. "They wrote it plainly," Keith commented to Denise. "She used my name, my profession. The betrayal is spelled out in black and white." Denise placed a hand on his shoulder. "Let that clarity reaffirm your stance in court. You are the victim." Bethany remained out on bail, wearing the ankle monitor. She rarely left the house except for mandated check-ins or lawyer visits. She looked worn, losing weight, hair dull. The charismatic sparkle was gone. At times, Keith almost pitied her, but then he remembered her manipulations. He avoided her whenever possible, sleeping at the safe house or staying with friends. The house they once shared as a loving couple now felt like a holding cell for a traitor. As the trial date approached, Keith spent hours with the prosecution, meticulously reviewing every piece of evidence. They walked him through how to testify effectively, how to handle cross-examination from father figure Devon's star lawyer, Lorraine Keller. "Keller might imply you turned them in out of spite or jealousy," the prosecutor warned. "She might say you knew about the smuggling, or that you neglected your wife, forcing her into Corey's arms. She might twist your flight schedule to claim you aided them unknowingly." Keith's eyes flashed. "Let her try. I have audio recordings, plus the ring camera footage, plus the forging docs. If they claim I aided them, why would I gather evidence against them?" Denise personally drilled Keith with mock cross-examinations. She role-played as a hostile lawyer, bombarding him with accusations. "Mr. Daniels, you traveled frequently, ignoring your wife's emotional needs. Didn't you suspect she sought comfort from Corey? Or, weren't you thrilled to let father figure Devon use your airline ID for perks?" Keith answered calmly, refusing to be rattled. "No, I was blindsided. If I'd known, I'd have intervened sooner. The evidence shows I discovered the forging only recently and took immediate action." Denise smiled after a session. "You're rock solid. They can't break you emotionally. Perfect." In the days leading up to trial, father figure Devon's lawyer, Lorraine Keller, publicly suggested that the father figure is a scapegoat for bigger unknown criminals, and that he simply delegated tasks to Corey. She implied Devon might have been a victim of manipulation by a cunning daughter-in-law, Bethany Daniels, who forged behind his back. Keith read these statements with a bitter laugh. "They're fighting among themselves, each blaming the other," he told Denise. "Let them devour each other's credibility." After 2 months of building tension, the players were set for the final showdown in court. Keith had meticulously readied his testimony, determined to expose father figure Devon, best friend Corey, and wife Bethany for the criminals and betrayers they truly were. The next step was the official trial, where all illusions would be shattered under oath, and Keith's revenge would reach its crescendo. Chapter 7. A brisk wind rattled the courthouse windows on the trial's opening day. The heavy oak doors led into a grand, high-ceilinged courtroom. Rows of benches rapidly filled with journalists, curious citizens, and relatives of both victims and defendants. The air buzzed with anticipation. At the front, father figure Devon, best friend Corey, and wife Bethany were escorted in under guard, each sporting formal attire but shackled. The defense attorneys fussed around them. Keith sat behind the prosecution table, flanked by Denise and occasionally Olivia in the row behind, offering silent moral support. The judge, Hightower, hammered the gavel for silence. "Case number 2421. State versus Devon Parker, Corey Smith, Bethany Daniels. Charges: conspiracy, smuggling, money laundering, forgery, among others." The lead prosecutor, Michael Zahn, stood confidently before the jury. He spoke in a measured tone, weaving a narrative of how father figure Devon orchestrated a criminal enterprise, assisted by Corey's logistical expertise, culminating in forging flight-related documents with Bethany's direct involvement. He held up glimpses of evidence. You will see shipping logs, secretly recorded conversations, bank records linking these three defendants to a sophisticated ring. You will hear from the victim, Mr. Keith Daniels, whose identity was stolen to facilitate contraband shipments under the guise of airline clearance. Zahn concluded, by the end, you will have no doubt of their guilt. Next, father figure Devon's high-powered lawyer, Lorraine Keller, took center stage. She wore a sleek navy suit, exuding confidence. She claimed Devon was merely a businessman in legitimate cargo operations, blindsided by employees forging documents. She pointed to Corey and Bethany as the real schemers. Mr. Parker was naive, trusting the wrong people. He never approved smuggling. He had no knowledge of Ms. Daniels forging Mr. Daniels' signature. We will prove he's innocent. Corey's lawyer, a bit disheveled, insisted Corey was just an employee following Devon's instructions, ignorant of the contraband details. Corey had no reason to cheat his friend Keith. He only stepped in because the father figure demanded it. Bethany's timid public defender portrayed her as a victim of powerful men, Devon and Corey, who forced her to sign false docs and manipulated her emotionally. She was caught in an abusive dynamic. Keith suppressed a derisive snort. Each defendant was effectively blaming the others, a swirl of contradictory stories. The prosecution began with law enforcement officers describing the warehouse raid, the contraband discovered, the logs referencing flight attendant clearance. Detective Richard testified about the chain of evidence, how they'd set up the sting with assistance from a private detective, hinting at Denise. They then called shipping company employees who recounted suspicious orders from father figure Devon and Corey. One forklift operator explained he saw Bethany come in occasionally, signing stuff in Keith's name. The forklift operator recognized that it didn't look like Keith's actual signature, but we were told it was just a quick sign-off. At one point, Bethany's lawyer cross-examined the forklift operator, trying to paint Bethany as ignorant. Did Ms. Daniels appear threatened? Was father figure Devon present, pressuring her? The forklift operator shrugged. Not particularly. She seemed to know what she was doing. It backfired, reinforcing that Bethany was comfortable forging. Keith internally cheered. A digital forensics expert took the stand, detailing how father figure Devon's phone had texts instructing Corey to use Keith's form for that next shipment, referencing new contraband codes. Another series of calls had Bethany confirming she forged Keith's signature. The jury saw transcripts on a projector. Keller, Devon's lawyer, tried to argue the phone might be used by multiple people, but the expert pointed out unique passcodes only Devon knew, plus prior usage patterns. The father figure's involvement was hammered home. The same forensic expert hammered Corey's direct role. Bank statements from Corey Smith Logistics, receiving large deposits on the exact dates shipments left. Email logs from Corey's device bragging to contacts about the flight attendant's clearance. Hard to refute. Corey slumped in his seat, shooting daggers at father figure Devon, maybe feeling betrayed that Devon never shielded him. Finally, the prosecutor called Keith Daniels. Heart pounding, Keith rose, stepping to the witness stand. He took a solemn oath, then faced the jury. Zahn began kindly. Mr. Daniels, can you state your occupation and your relationship to these defendants? Yes, Keith answered, voice steady. I'm a flight attendant with a major airline. Devon Parker has been my father figure since my teens. Corey Smith was my closest friend for years. Bethany Daniels is my wife. He paused, jaw clenching. Or was, until I discovered their conspiracy. The prosecutor nodded sympathetically. Tell us how you first suspected wrongdoing. Keith recounted the suspicious phone calls, late-night vanishings, ring camera footage, and how he hired a detective. He explained discovering the forging of his signature, culminating in the warehouse raid. He spoke calmly, referencing the heartbreak but focusing on the facts. How father figure Devin and Corey exploited his flight credentials for contraband shipments. How Bethany forged documents in his name. The jury listened intently, many frowning at the idea of a father figure betraying a son-like bond. Zahn gently asked about the personal toll. Beyond the criminal acts, how did their actions affect you emotionally? Keith inhaled, controlling a quiver in his voice. It was devastating. The father figure I trusted, the best friend, and the wife I loved all conspired behind my back. They used me as an unwitting front for smuggling. They mocked me, took advantage of my flight schedules to plan their deals. It wasn't just a financial betrayal, it tore apart my personal life. The prosecutor's tone turned compassionate. Thank you, Mr. Daniels. No further questions. Lorraine Keller stepped up, face composed. Mr. Daniels, you claim father figure Devin threatened you. Any direct proof? A recorded threat? No direct recording of that threat, Keith said. But I did record phone calls referencing how he'd handle me if I got nosy. We have those transcripts. Keller gave a tight smile. Couldn't that be an expression of concern? Perhaps he worried your meddling might endanger you? Keith gave a short laugh. No. He was clearly threatening me. The context was menacing. She pivoted. You mentioned forging your signature. Did you physically see father figure Devin forging it? Or was it possible Bethany alone did that, never telling Devin? I overheard them discussing it in calls, referencing father figure Devin's instructions. The forklift operators also saw them together. We have texts from father figure Devin instructing. Use Keith's forms. So yes, father figure Devin was involved. Keller tried insinuating Keith might have known about the shipments earlier. Is it possible you turned a blind eye because you gained from father figure Devin's financial help in the past? Keith's eyes flashed. I never gained from smuggling money. He paid for some of my flight training years ago, but that was no reason for me to accept criminal activity. The moment I suspected wrongdoing, I reported it. Keller frowned, shifting strategies. Let's talk about your home life. Didn't Bethany mention feeling neglected, leading her to confide in father figure Devin and Corey? Maybe you ironically pushed her into forging for them to get emotional validation? That's absurd, Keith spat. They manipulated me, not the other way around. I didn't push her into forging. She chose it. Keller sighed. No more questions. I see the hostility here. Corey's lawyer stepped up, looking flustered. Mr. Daniels, you said Corey was your best friend. Could you have misread his intentions? Maybe he believed father figure Devin's instructions were legitimate. Did you see him sign illegal docs personally? I have digital proof of Corey emailing contraband codes, receiving illegal payments. He bragged about using my flight status. He also openly bragged about forging behind my back, Keith answered, unwavering. No! Misreading! Corey's lawyer muttered something about Keith's ongoing jealousy, but Keith refused to take the bait. Bethany's timid lawyer approached. Mr. Daniels, you indicated your wife displayed suspicious behavior. Isn't it possible she was coerced by father figure Devin and Corey, given your frequent absences for flights? Keith's face hardened. No. She told me she wanted excitement and money. She wasn't trembling in fear. She was actively forging my name, spending hush money. That's not coercion. The lawyer pressed. But she claims father figure Devin threatened to harm her or you if she didn't comply. She never told me that. If it was true, why not come to me or the police? She had multiple opportunities. The lawyer had little more. No further questions. Keith stepped down, heart pounding, relieved the worst was over. He felt a wave of support from Denise's nod and Olivia's discreet thumbs up. Denise took the stand, describing her investigative process, the ring camera evidence, the phone intercepts, and how father figure Devin, Corey, and Bethany each played a role. She produced logs verifying forging sessions, plus recorded calls. The jury heard snippets. Bethany's voice, "I got Keith's signature copied perfectly now." Corey's voice, "We'll finalize the doc once father figure Devin says go." Father figure Devin's voice, "Use Keith's flight clearance tomorrow. He's out of town anyway." The effect was devastating, each defendant's guilt shining through. Next, a hacker friend of Denise took the stand, verifying the digital footprints. Father figure Devin's offshore accounts, Corey's repeated link to contraband codes, and Bethany's user login forging Keith's credentials. The defense squirmed, trying to cast doubt on the hacker's legality, but the judge overruled, stating probable cause for the infiltration existed with a detective's involvement. The evidence stayed. Lorraine Keller attempted to salvage father figure Devin's image, calling a few minor employees to testify he was generous, fatherly. But on cross-examination, the prosecution brought up how father figure Devin regularly threatened workers to keep quiet. The employees admitted hearing it secondhand. The defense's credibility sank. Corey's lawyer, seeing the barrage of proof, asked minimal questions. He realized the best they could do was argue for lesser charges or that Corey was less culpable than father figure Devin. But the taped phone calls had Corey bragging about forging. It was a losing battle. Bethany's public defender tried painting her as an abused, coerced spouse, but the prosecution pointed out that she never reported abuse, spent large sums from the smuggling proceeds, and had an affair with Corey, none of which indicated fear or victimhood. One fiasco occurred when the public defender introduced a half-baked claim about Keith being cold and absent. The prosecution swiftly objected, calling it irrelevant. The judge mostly sustained, focusing on the criminal conspiracy. It was clear the Bethany as victim angle was floundering. After weeks of testimony, the prosecution gave a searing final statement. Father figure Devin orchestrated an international smuggling ring, using his position and threatening subordinates. Corey Smith was his right-hand man, forging documents and funneling money. Bethany Daniels contributed by forging her husband's signature, facilitating the cover. The flight attendant, Keith, was oblivious, but eventually discovered the plot, gathering evidence. The jury saw the logs, heard the calls, read the forging docs. The prosecutor asked them for a swift, unanimous guilty verdict. Lorraine Keller tried once again to argue father figure Devin's ignorance. He delegated tasks, trusting Corey. Bethany's forging was unknown to him, but the mountain of evidence contradicted it. Corey's lawyer repeated he was bullied by Devin, but phone logs showed Corey's enthusiastic participation. Bethany's lawyer tried coercion, but repeated references to her personal involvement contradicted that claim. Sitting behind the prosecution, Keith watched father figure Devin's scowling face, Corey's defeated posture, Bethany's tearful eyes. He felt no pity, just a savage sense that justice was near. He recalled the heartbreak of seeing them laugh behind his back. Now the tables turned, and the judge would decide their fate. Judge Hightower explained the legal framework to the jury, emphasizing each defendant's separate guilt must be considered, but the conspiracy charge unites them. Then the jury retreated to deliberate. The tension soared. Keith walked out of the courtroom, accompanied by Denise and Olivia, nerves taut. The next hours or days would reveal the final verdict. Chapter 8. The jury deliberated for 3 full days, occasionally sending questions to the judge about specific documents or audio transcripts. Keith spent those days in emotional limbo, dividing time between the safe house, the airline job, and occasionally the marital home, when Bethany was away in court or forced to be absent for legal reasons. He dreaded a scenario where father figure Devin's expensive lawyer might sway the jury. But the evidence was strong, he reminded himself. Denise stayed close, offering updates. One juror asked to replay the Ring camera audio. Another requested more shipping logs. They're thorough. Usually a good sign they're verifying everything carefully. On the second day of deliberation, a random jail call from Bethany popped up on Keith's phone. He declined it, ignoring the pang in his chest. She was desperate. That evening, he discovered a tear-stained note pinned to the fridge. "Keith, I'm so sorry. If the jury spares me, I promise I'll sign the divorce peacefully. I beg you not to press for the max sentence. I love you." He read it, then crumpled it. Too late for love. Rumors swirled that father figure Devon tried to bribe or threaten a witness, but no direct evidence emerged. The prosecution had anticipated such attempts, ensuring security. Keith steeled himself that father figure's monstrous cunning might still attempt a last-minute sabotage. Finally, the jury signaled they reached a verdict on day 4. The court reconvened, hush descending as father figure Devon, Corey, and Bethany were led in, each looking anxious or defeated. Keith, seated with Denise behind the prosecution, clasped his hands tight, breath shallow. The judge took her seat, the bailiff solemnly announcing, "All rise!" The jury foreperson, a calm, middle-aged woman, stood. Her voice echoed in the silent chamber. "On the count of conspiracy to commit smuggling, we find Devon Parker guilty. On the same count, we find Corey Smith guilty. On the same count, we find Bethany Daniels guilty." A ripple of reaction. Keith's pulse hammered. The foreperson continued. "On the count of money laundering, we find Devon Parker guilty. Corey Smith guilty. Bethany Daniels not guilty. The jury finds insufficient evidence she laundered money personally, though she participated in forging docs facilitating it." Bethany's face flickered with momentary relief, but the foreperson went on. "On the count of forgery and identity theft, we find Bethany Daniels guilty and also Corey Smith guilty for aiding. Father figure Devon Parker guilty as an accomplice." At each guilty, father figure Devon's scowl deepened. Corey's shoulders slumped. Bethany wept openly, tears streaming. The final cumulative effect was that all three faced multiple felony convictions, though Bethany dodged the direct money laundering count. The air felt electric with tension. The judge thanked the jury, then set a date for sentencing in 2 weeks. The convicts were escorted away. Father figure Devon hissed under his breath, "This isn't over, Keith," as he passed. Corey refused to meet Keith's gaze. Bethany dared to glance once more, tears brimming, eyes silently begging for mercy. Keith kept his face impassive. Denise squeezed his arm. "They're guilty. You did it." He nodded stiffly. The wave of relief fought with lingering heartbreak. They were found guilty, but the sentencing remained. How many years would they get? Outside, cameras flashed. Reporters clamored. "Keith, how do you feel about the guilty verdict? Do you pity your wife? What about father figure Devon's threat?" He responded with a single statement. "Justice prevailed. I trust the court to deliver appropriate sentences." He then marched past, ignoring further questions. Olivia shielded him from aggressive paparazzi. Back at the safe house, Detective Richard joined them for a celebratory coffee. "You did the right thing. Jury confirmed every suspicion. The forging, the smuggling. Father figure Devon's empire is done. Good riddance." Keith exhaled, forcing a weary smile. "Thanks. But I can't truly breathe until the sentencing. They could get 5 years or 25 years. I want them to face maximum punishment." That evening, Bethany's public defender emailed Keith's new divorce attorney requesting a spousal mercy letter for the sentencing hearing. Basically, they wanted Keith to write a letter to the judge stating he believed Bethany was manipulated, urging leniency. Keith read the request, lips curling in contempt. "Absolutely not," he told his divorce attorney. "She can rot. I want maximum punishment." The attorney nodded, filing an official refusal. Keith felt a pang of sorrow. Once he'd have done anything to shield Bethany from pain. Now he refused to lift a finger. The prosecution made it clear they'd push for severe sentences. Father figure Devin, as the ringleader, faced 20 years. Corey, the operations man, 15 years. Bethany, though found guilty of forging and conspiracy, might get 5-10, depending on how the judge weighed her role. Prosecutor Zahn asked Keith if he'd deliver a victim impact statement at sentencing. He agreed, determined to let the court hear how deeply their betrayal cut him. Denise, noticing Keith's inner turmoil, quietly invited him to a small dinner the night before sentencing. Over simple takeout, she offered comfort. "You're strong, Keith. But it's okay to grieve the marriage you lost. You can be both relieved they're punished and sad it ended this way." "I know," he said softly, picking at noodles. "I try to stay numb, but sometimes the heartbreak floods back. The father figure once taught me to fish. Corey was my best man. Bethany, well, she was everything. Now they're criminals, traitors." Denise nodded. "Trauma is complicated. But soon, the sentencing will close this chapter. Then you can truly move on." That night, Keith dreamt of father figure Devin mocking him on a fishing trip, of Corey laughing with Bethany in their marital bed, forging his name. He woke in a cold sweat. The safe house was silent, only a faint hum from the fridge. For a moment he despised them all for haunting his sleep. He whispered to the darkness, "You'll pay for every tear." 2 weeks after the verdict, the sentencing hearing arrived. The courthouse was again filled with press and curious onlookers. The 3 convicted criminals, Devin, Corey, and Bethany, were led in. Each wore prison attire, hair disheveled from their time in custody. Lorraine Keller, father figure Devin's lawyer, looked tense. Corey's lawyer looked resigned. Bethany's public defender seemed nervous. Judge Hightower took the bench, face solemn. "We're here to determine appropriate sentences given the jury's guilty verdict on smuggling conspiracy, forgery, identity theft, and more." Prosecutor Zahn addressed the court, recapping the severity of the crimes. Father figure Devin orchestrated a cross-border smuggling ring, endangering public safety. Corey Smith was an active collaborator. Bethany Daniels committed repeated forgeries to facilitate these crimes. Mr. Daniels, the betrayed husband, suffered profound personal harm. We seek exemplary sentences, at least 20 years for Devin, 15 for Corey, and 10 for Bethany. Lorraine Keller argued father figure Devin never intended harm, urging a lighter sentence due to his age. She pleaded for 510 years. Corey's lawyer repeated the subordinate angle, requesting 5-year leniency. Bethany's public defender tearfully recounted how Bethany was emotionally manipulated, proposing 23 years max or even probation. Keith clenched his jaw, resisting the urge to stand up and counter their lies. Finally, the judge invited Keith to deliver a victim impact statement. He rose, smoothing his suit jacket, heart pounding. The entire courtroom fell silent, eyes on him, Bethany's included. She looked terrified. Father figure Devin stared with cold fury. Corey seethed. Keith inhaled, addressing the judge. "Your Honor, I'm Keith Daniels, the flight attendant whose signature they forged, whose life they hijacked. I once trusted father figure Devin like a dad, believed Corey was my best friend, and married Bethany out of true love. But they collectively exploited me for their criminal ring. They mocked me, used my name for smuggling, and turned my marriage into a joke. The emotional devastation is immeasurable. He paused, voice shaking slightly with raw emotion. Bethany, my own wife, chose betrayal and greed. Corey, a friend I'd have died for, laughed behind my back. Father figure Devin threatened me, proving he never saw me as a son, only a tool. They didn't just commit crimes, they shattered my trust in people. I can't close my eyes without remembering how I discovered their secret phone calls, how I felt the moment I realized everything was a lie. He locked eyes on the judge. I request the maximum punishment allowed. They destroyed my faith in family, friendship, love, all for illicit gains. Let them pay for it. An electric hush seized the courtroom. Keith's words bristled with heartbreak and resolve, a testament to the personal havoc wreaked by the trio. Bethany sobbed, tears streaming. Corey glowered, refusing eye contact. Father figure Devin's glare bored into Keith, pure hate. The judge watched, expression impassive, but Keith sensed the gravity of his statement. He stepped down, heart hammering. Denise gave him a reassuring nod, proud of his composure. Judge Hightower cleared her throat, scanning notes. The evidence is overwhelming. Each defendant contributed to a conspiracy that exploited the airline system, facilitated smuggling, and inflicted personal harm on Mr. Daniels. I've considered your roles. For father figure Devin Parker, you were the ringleader. For Corey Smith, the operations manager. For Bethany Daniels, a direct participant forging official docs. She eyed them gravely. Such widespread criminal activity demands severe consequences. At the same time, the court weighs each defendant's capacity for rehabilitation. Father figure Devin, you show no remorse. Corey Smith remains defiant. Bethany Daniels expresses regret but also demonstrates conscious involvement. Turning to father figure Devin. Devin Parker, for smuggling conspiracy, money laundering, and identity theft. This court sentences you to 22 years in state prison, plus restitution for the illicit profits gleaned from Parker Cargo. Devin inhaled sharply, color draining from his face. A hush rippled. That was near the maximum recommended range. Next, for Corey. Corey Smith, similarly found guilty of conspiracy, forging, and active smuggling involvement, you are sentenced to 15 years in state prison, plus fines and restitution. Corey cursed under his breath, sagging in his seat. Finally, the judge faced Bethany. Bethany Daniels, convicted of conspiracy and forgery, but not direct money laundering. I weigh your lesser role against the fact you personally forged your husband's signature, severely betraying both marital vows and public trust. You also show partial remorse, but not sufficient to overshadow the gravity of your offense. She paused. I sentence you to 8 years in state prison, plus restitution. You shall forfeit any illicit earnings from these crimes. Bethany let out a keening sob, face twisted in heartbreak. Corey shut his eyes. Father figure Devin shook his head with silent fury. The judge concluded, court adjourned. The gavel struck. Pandemonium erupted. Paparazzi snapped photos. The bailiffs led father figure Devin, Corey, and Bethany away, each pair of eyes filled with either fury or despair. Keith watched them vanish through a side door, a swirl of conflicting feelings. But mostly he felt relief. They were locked away, paying for every sin. The crowd parted for Keith as he exited the building. Microphones thrust at him. He ignored them, letting Denise handle brief statements. We respect the court's decision. Justice was served. Overhead, the sun shone bright, as if signifying a fresh start. Bethany, escorted by marshals, managed to hiss one last plea as she passed. Keith, I'm sorry, please don't. But she was cut off, forced forward. Keith turned his back. Her tears no longer moved him. From a distance, father figure Devin glared, spitting, This isn't the end, boy. I'll find a way out. He was hustled away, the bailiffs ignoring his threats. Keith merely stared, silent. Let father figure rot in prison. Corey said nothing, as if resigned to his fate, occasionally glancing at Keith with a mixture of hate and regret. They led him to a different transport van, ensuring no final scuffle. In a quieter corner of the courthouse steps, Denise approached Keith. "You did it. They're gone for a long time. Are you okay?" He inhaled, heart trembling. "Better than I've been in months. Thank you, both of you. Couldn't have done it alone." Olivia smiled gently. "I'm glad we got them. Now, you can truly move on. No more forging, no more father figure threats." Keith set about finalizing the divorce. Bethany, locked up, had no resources to fight. The judge in the divorce case swiftly granted Keith the marital home, given her criminal conviction. He decided to sell it anyway, too many memories. He'd keep the proceeds to pay off leftover debts. The sense of closure loomed. One late night, after the sentencing, Keith visited the empty house a final time, walking through silent rooms once filled with illusions of marital bliss. He paused at the threshold of the bedroom, recalling the day he carried Bethany over the threshold after their wedding. He forced a short, bitter laugh. That naive groom was gone. He whispered to the darkness, "You lost everything, Bethany, so did I, but at least I can rebuild." Then he walked out, keys in hand, ready to surrender the property to a realtor's sign. Days turned to weeks. Keith resumed flight attendant duties more steadily, each new flight reminding him the world was bigger than his heartbreak. Passengers asked about his well-being. A few recognized him from news stories. He stayed polite, refusing to share more than a nod or short acknowledgement. He found solace in forging a new personal code. Never again would he trust blindly. But also he discovered a deeper empathy for others' suffering. The heartbreak shaped him, ironically making him stronger and more aware. Denise remained a close confidant, occasionally meeting him for coffee. One morning, she teased, "You know, it's nice not to have father figure Devin breathing down our necks. I can actually focus on normal detective work now." "And I can focus on living," Keith said, a half-smile. "I owe you a huge debt of gratitude. You saved me from a horrifying trap." She shrugged. "You saved yourself, Keith. I just provided the means." Olivia published a short series about the smuggling ring, focusing on the complexities of a flight attendant's father figure using airline documents. She minimized the sensational cheating wife angle, emphasizing the bigger lesson: betrayal can hide in plain sight. Keith thanked her for preserving his dignity in print. With father figure Devin facing 22 years, Corey 15, and Bethany 8, Keith saw their destinies sealed behind bars. Over time, father figure Devin might attempt appeals or claim innocence, but the evidence was too damning. Corey might do partial time if he behaved, but 15 years was no small stretch. Bethany, possibly out in half that time with good behavior, still enough to realize life behind bars. He decided to relocate, taking a transfer to a different airline hub. A fresh city, a fresh start. The idea of returning nightly to the same neighborhoods that reminded him of father figure Devin's infiltration, or Corey's sneers, or Bethany's laughter felt suffocating. Denise helped him pack up, shipping boxes to a new condo near an airport in a bigger metropolis. He planned to keep flying, but also considered a side pursuit, maybe studying law enforcement or investigative techniques. He had a knack for unraveling conspiracies now. On the last day before moving, Keith stood by the house's empty living room, the walls stripped bare. He recalled the day father figure Devin came over to celebrate their mortgage finalization. Corey joking about expanding the family, and Bethany beaming. Now he felt only the faintest echo of that happiness. He locked the door for good, handing the keys to a realtor. The flight attendant who once believed in unconditional love left behind the ghosts of betrayal. Driving away with boxes in the trunk, Keith paused at a red light. He recalled father figure Devon's menacing face, Corey's smug grin, Bethany's tearful pleas. Then he inhaled, letting them go. They reaped their fate the worst. He emerged stronger, forging a new identity beyond the naive spouse. At a final coffee with Denise before leaving town, she asked, "Do you regret any of it?" He stirred sugar into his mug. "I regret trusting them, but not exposing them. Let them rot. That's justice. Now, I'm free." They clinked mugs, a symbolic toast to the end of Part 2. The cheating wife and her conspirators had faced brutal comeuppance, and the husband, once a trusting flight attendant, had proven unstoppable in his cunning, ensuring every traitor found themselves behind bars. He whispered, "Never again." And with that, parted ways to carve out a new life, vengeful chapter closed, and a future open to healing. Chapter 9. 3 weeks after the sentencing that locked away father figure Devon for 22 years, best friend Corey for 15, and wife Bethany for 8, Keith Daniels stood in the freshly painted living room of his new condo. Located near a bustling airline hub in a bigger metropolis, it offered a vantage of the skyline's silver towers. The early sun streamed through large windows, illuminating unpacked boxes and the bare essentials Keith had brought from his old life. He set down his coffee mug on a windowsill, inhaling the faint scent of paint. For the first time in a long while, the quiet no longer felt oppressive. The house that once symbolized betrayal was sold. Father figure Devon's manipulations ended, and Corey's sneers were confined to a prison cell. As for Bethany, she'd parted ways with him in that final moment in court, tears overshadowing her face as the bailiffs took her away. The emotional weight still lingered, but each day removed from that toxic environment felt like a step toward freedom. Denise had been right, the scariest battles often come after you've won. The aftermath of betrayal leaves scars, but Keith intended to rebuild a stronger self from those ashes. A knock at the door stirred Keith from his reflections. He opened it to find Denise, hair pulled up in a practical ponytail, wearing casual jeans and a small grin. She carried a paper bag of groceries and a bottle of wine. "Thought you might need some essentials," she said. "Thanks," Keith replied, stepping aside to let her in. "I'm still living out of boxes, so this is appreciated." She gave a quick, appraising glance around the condo. "Nice space. Feels more open than your old place, fewer ghosts." He nodded, acknowledging the unspoken truth. Fewer ghosts indeed. They settled in the kitchen nook, rummaging for plates, and soon improvised a lunch from the groceries. Over sandwiches and a quick glass of wine, despite the early hour, they caught up. Denise updated him on the leftover legal formalities. Father figure Devon and Corey had filed appeals, but the evidence was overwhelming. Bethany, meanwhile, was transferred to a women's facility pending final intake. She'd tried to contact Keith again, but he'd ignored it. "Same old story," Denise said, sipping her wine. "Everyone is turning on each other in prison. Devon claims Corey was the real smuggler. Corey claims Devon threatened him. Bethany tries to label herself a coerced accomplice. None of it changes the sentencing." Keith exhaled. "Glad they're locked away. No more illusions." Even though the criminals were behind bars, Keith acknowledged lingering emotional burdens. Sleep sometimes evaded him, haunted by nightmares of father figure Devon's menacing face or Bethany's tearful pleas. He occasionally wrestled with conflicting anger and sorrow, as if part of him still grieved the woman he once cherished. Yet he refused to yield to those feelings, reminding himself of the cold betrayal. Denise, always perceptive, studied his expression. "You know, it's okay to talk about it. Don't bury the heartbreak under stoicism." He gave a rueful smile. "Talking about heartbreak won't fix it. Action did. I took them down, ended their illusions. That's enough." She nodded sympathetically. "Just remember, healing isn't linear. If you ever need to vent, I'm here." Late that evening, alone again, Keith opened a small box labeled Old Photos. He flipped through glimpses of his younger self, with father figure Devon, fishing rods in hand, broad smiles on their faces. Another shot. Corey and Keith in college hoodies, arms slung over each other. And inevitably, wedding photos, Bethany radiant in white, Keith in a crisp suit, father figure Devon standing by them, Corey as the best man. The pictures felt like relics from a different universe. He debated trashing them, but paused. He realized they were part of his story, the experiences that shaped him. So he set them aside in a closet, sealed away, but not destroyed. In the morning, Keith started a routine run through the condo's neighborhood. Crisp air filled his lungs as he jogged along a tree-lined street. Freed from the mental chains of betrayal, he realized how sweetly normal life could feel. No more racing home suspecting father figure Devon prowling or Corey smirking in his driveway. Returning from the run, he found a letter slipped under his door. He frowned, picking it up. It had no return address, scrawled with Bethany Daniels, inmate. He nearly crumpled it on instinct, but decided to read it. Curiosity piqued. Inside was a single page of shaky handwriting. "Keith, I know you have no reason to believe me, but I'm sorry. Prison is terrifying, but it gives me clarity. Devon used me for so long, and I let greed overshadow our marriage. I regret cheating, forging, everything. I don't ask for your forgiveness, just that you know I once truly loved you. I hope you can move on. Bethany." He closed his eyes, the ache stirring briefly. Then he set the letter aside. She was years too late. Move on, indeed. Keith soon resumed full flight attendant duties at the new airline hub. The demands of schedules, layovers, and passenger care kept him busy, giving him less time to brood. He discovered a quiet joy in traveling again, without the dread of returning to a chaos-laden home. Freed from father figure Devon's sabotage, he soared in his career, eventually earning lead flight attendant responsibilities. Co-workers respected him more deeply after hearing glimpses of his story. The flight attendant who single-handedly exposed a criminal ring. Some asked how he stayed so calm. He merely shrugged. He'd learned that composure was the best shield. Denise remained a close friend, occasionally joining him for coffee or a night out. Olivia kept in touch from the old city, sending news about father figure Devon's failed appeals or Corey's attempts to reduce time. Each denial of their motions gave Keith fresh satisfaction. They wouldn't escape. He also found new acquaintances among flight crew who admired his resilience. A few times after a flight, he shared a casual drink with them, discovering normal camaraderie again. The warmth of genuine friendship felt surreal after so much betrayal. On Denise's recommendation, Keith started attending a discreet therapy group for betrayal survivors. Initially reluctant, he realized it helped to vent among people who'd faced spousal infidelity or family manipulations. He never named father figure Devon or Corey, but he described the outlines of a massive betrayal from multiple loved ones. The group's empathy eased the heaviness, reminding him he wasn't alone in suffering heartbreak. One evening, a group member told him, "Your story might be exceptional, but the pain is universal. We're proud you turned it into a fight for justice." He left, feeling lighter. Perhaps sharing the burden was a step toward healing. One afternoon, Keith found another envelope in his condo mailbox, labeled from a prison but not in Bethany's handwriting. The note read, Keith, this is Manny, a cellmate of Corey's. He says you gotta know something. Father figure Devin might have outside allies plotting payback. Stay alert, man. Manny. A chill rippled through Keith. Manny? Possibly a friend or con leveraging Corey's info. He took the note to Denise, who frowned. Devin threatened you before. He might still have connections on the outside, she said. Should we forward this to the authorities? Keith nodded. Yes. And I'll stay vigilant. I won't let Father Figure's allies blindside me. While the story might be over for Father Figure Devin in terms of sentencing, it didn't guarantee an end to his vendetta. Keith recalled Father Figure's menacing, "This isn't over." If he had shady associates still free, they might target Keith or attempt some sabotage. But Keith refused to cower. Denise urged caution. Lock your doors. Be mindful of suspicious cars. If anything, let me or Detective Richard know immediately. He agreed, increasing security around his condo, installing a top-grade camera system. He wouldn't be an easy mark. A month later, Keith received yet another letter from Bethany. She wrote more pages this time, describing her time in prison, the daily humiliations, the regret gnawing at her. She insisted Father Figure Devin manipulated her from the start, that Corey offered false affection, and she hated herself for betraying Keith. I'm not writing to beg for your forgiveness, she wrote. I know we're done. I just want you to understand I see my own guilt clearly now. Please find someone who truly values you. I lost that chance. I'll pay for it every single day. Reading it, Keith felt an odd pang. He'd once truly loved her. Now, even if she had some sincerity in her regret, the damage was irreparable. He typed a short response. Bethany, I read your letter. I accept that you regret your actions, but I cannot give you comfort. We are finished. Serve your time, and I wish you clarity. Keith. He mailed it, the minimal courtesy he could offer. Corey rarely reached out. No more manipulative letters surfaced. Possibly he realized Keith was done, or maybe Corey was busy fending for survival in prison. A fleeting rumor from Manny, the cellmate, suggested Corey faced extortion from a gang inside. Keith found no sympathy for the man who once called him a naive fool. Good riddance. As for Father Figure Devin, the appeals were rejected, so he languished in maximum security. Word emerged that he'd threatened staff or tried bribing a guard. The system locked him down further. Keith occasionally had nightmares about Father Figure Devin escaping and seeking revenge. But each morning, he reminded himself that the man was caged for 2 decades. He might harbor malice, but the bars were strong. Keith's competence as a flight attendant caught the eye of management. He was offered a chance to train as an in-flight supervisor, overseeing cabin crews on international routes. He accepted, finding a sense of pride in forging a new professional identity, untainted by Father Figure Devin's old manipulations. On a flight to Tokyo, he marveled at how calm he felt. No anxious thoughts about returning home to Betrayal. Instead, he had a bright condo, a supportive detective friend, and a future he controlled. Over months, Keith formed a small circle of friends in the new city fellow flight crew, a neighbor couple from his condo building, plus some from the Betrayal support group. He'd host low-key get-togethers, surprising himself by how easily he could laugh again. The gloom lifted, replaced by cautious optimism. Occasionally, they'd ask about his wild backstory. He'd share a guarded summary. Father figure, best friend, and wife conspired got locked away. People gasped at the scale of betrayal. He'd just shrug, stating, I learned who not to trust. Life moves on. One evening after a social gathering, Keith walked Denise to her car. She teased him for his mild flirtations with a colleague. He teased back that she was reading too much into it. They shared a comfortable camaraderie, but an undercurrent had grown. Was there something deeper? Denise lightly touched his arm, eyes meeting his. "You've come a long way, Keith. I'm proud, and I'm just happy we can talk about anything. Even your heartbreak or the fiasco you overcame." He offered a small, genuine smile. "You've been my rock, no question. I owe you." They lingered, tension crackling. For a moment, it seemed like they might lean closer, but Keith, still cautious, gently let out a breath. "Let's keep things simple for now," he said quietly, unsure if he was ready for romance. She nodded, understanding. The unspoken possibility remained afloat, but not forced. Their bond deepened in a supportive, respectful manner, occasionally flirting, but never crossing lines. They'd share dinners, watch local concerts, or just chat about life outside the investigation mode. Keith discovered she had her own past wounds from a failed marriage. They recognized each other's scars, forging a deeper connection. He found it oddly refreshing. A companion who genuinely admired his strength and never exploited his trust. But he also felt the baggage of father figure Devin, Corey, and Bethany weigh on him. So they took it slow, letting trust grow organically. One late night, Keith returned from a flight to find graffiti scrawled on his condo's exterior wall. "Traitor," in red letters. His car's side mirror was smashed. Heart racing, he called Denise, who arrived with local cops. A neighbor reported seeing two masked figures fleeing. Denise frowned, scanning the damage. "Looks like a warning. Possibly father figure Devin's old associates. Manny's letter hinted they might want payback." Keith's jaw clenched. "They can try. I won't be intimidated. But let's see if we can get camera footage." Detective Richard responded to the incident, coordinating with local authorities. Keith explained the father figure's threatened vendetta, Manny's tip about potential outside allies. The detective put Keith's address on an enhanced watch list, advised him to carry personal protection. "We'll track any known associates of father figure Devin," Richard promised. "He might have a few loyal cronies, but they're dwindling." Keith exhaled. "Let them come. I'll be ready." Keith invested in better condo security, new cameras, reinforced locks, an alarm system. He refused to live in fear, but caution was necessary. He told neighbors to watch for suspicious activity. Denise offered to keep her phone on 24/7 for emergencies. One night, as he tested the new alarm, he realized how drastically his life had changed. From a naive flight attendant once greeting father figure Devin with open arms to a man prepared for post-verdict retaliation. The contrast fueled his resolve to never be a victim again. A month after the vandalism, a tip led Detective Richard to arrest two petty criminals apparently paid a small sum to harass Keith. They confessed they received instructions from an unnamed contact claiming to speak for father figure Devin. With them locked up, the harassment ceased. Keith felt a final relief that father figure's tentacles had been clipped. In the continuing months, Bethany wrote sporadically, describing harsh prison life, regrets, therapy sessions. She insisted father figure Devin was the real monster, lamenting how she'd let herself become an accomplice. Keith read these letters with a detached sense of closure. He never replied again. She served her 8-year sentence, possibly reduced for good behavior eventually, but Keith had severed ties. Periodically, news arrived that father figure Devin struggled in prison. His attempts at bribery failed. He faced hostility from rival inmates. Keith gleaned little satisfaction beyond the knowledge the man who once manipulated him was now powerless. That was enough. He refused to track Devin's plight further. Corey, for his part, remained largely silent behind bars. Keith heard rumors that Corey joined a prison job program. No illusions left. Maybe the man realized he had no path out. No more letters to Keith. The old friendship was a distant memory overshadowed by betrayal. By year's end, Keith had established a stable routine. The condo felt like home, free of ominous signs. He'd soared through the airline ranks, now a senior flight attendant recognized for calm leadership. The heartbreak never fully vanished, but it dulled with time, replaced by confidence in forging a new destiny. Denise occasionally teased him about maybe starting to date, but he insisted on focusing on self-growth first. She respected that. Their bond remained strong, an unspoken undercurrent of potential romance they might explore one day. For now, they simply enjoyed each other's company, free from manipulative entanglements. On a crisp autumn morning, Keith received a final official letter from the DA's office. Father figure Devon's last appeal was rejected. The conviction stood firm. The criminal's fates were sealed. He stared at the letter, a soft laugh escaping him. This was the final stamp of closure. No more illusions, no more threats. Father figure Devon, best friend Corey, and wife Bethany would remain behind bars or years away from normal life. He walked outside to his condo's small balcony, gazing at the city's sunrise. A sense of peace washed over him. He'd faced unimaginable betrayal, the father figure who exploited him, the best friend who seduced his wife, and the wife who forged documents for crime. He overcame them all, orchestrating a meticulous revenge that ended in lengthy prison sentences. Yes, scars remained, but from those scars, he'd built a new version of himself, a man hardened by treachery yet still capable of forging real connections, as proven by Denise's unwavering friendship. The future stretched before him, bright and unburdened. He quietly whispered, "Never again," letting the crisp breeze carry away any lingering shadows of the past. The final stage of his revenge saga closed. Now, he owned his destiny, forging a hopeful tomorrow from the wreckage of betrayal. Chapter 10. 12 months post-sentencing, Keith woke in his modern condo, the warm morning light streaming through. He stretched, feeling a sense of calm that had eluded him a year ago. Today marked the first anniversary of the day father figure Devon, Corey, and Bethany began serving their lengthy sentences. He brewed coffee, stepping onto his balcony to savor the city skyline, quietly reflecting, no more father figure illusions, no Corey manipulation, no Bethany heartbreak. The trials ended, the conspirators locked away. He'd endured a year of nightmares, sporadic threats, and emotional exhaustion, but emerged stable. His phone buzzed. A text from Denise. "Happy 1-year freedom from betrayal day. Breakfast at my place?" He chuckled, texting back an enthusiastic yes. She often teased him about celebrating milestones of independence. By 8 a.m., he reached her cozy townhouse. Denise greeted him with a warm grin, wearing casual leggings and a hoodie, a spatula in hand. The aroma of bacon and pancakes wafted from the kitchen. "Look at you, domestic goddess," he teased lightly. She smirked. "I can cook decently, you know. You're not the only multi-skilled person around." They shared an easy laugh. The tension from the old days replaced by genuine comfort. Over breakfast, they chatted about normal topics, airline expansions, a detective case Denise was on. Eventually, conversation drifted to the day's significance. "A year since your final victory," she said gently. "How do you feel?" He shrugged. "Better than I expected. Sure, scars remain, but I'm at peace. My ex-wife, father figure, and ex-friend can't harm me anymore." Denise nodded. "That's growth. Proud of you." She hesitated, then added, "Any regrets about not pressing even harder charges or about letting Bethany get only 8 years? He shook his head. "No. She'll face enough. I want zero contact. My only regret is trusting them in the first place, but that's on them, not me." Mid-breakfast, Keith's phone chimed. He glanced at the email subject line. Bethany Daniels' request from prison counselor. Brow furrowing, he read it silently. Mr. Daniels, I'm Counselor Reyes at Greenfield Women's Facility. Bethany Daniels asked if you'd participate in a victim-offender dialogue program. She claims it'd help her rehabilitation. This is voluntary. Let me know if you're open. He shared it with Denise, letting out a mirthless chuckle. A year ago, maybe she was desperate for a lenient sentence. Now it's some therapy program attempt. Are you going to respond? Denise asked softly. He set the phone aside. No, I see no point. I had my closure in court. She can heal without dragging me back in. Denise nodded understandingly. That's valid. Don't let them manipulate your life further? He typed a concise reply. Not interested. I wish her no harm, but I have no reason to engage. They finished breakfast, sipping coffee in a comfortable lull. Keith stared at a blank spot on Denise's wall, recalling the illusions of marriage. You know, he said quietly, I used to dream about building a family with Bethany. Kids, vacations, a stable future. Now it's all rubble. Denise reached out, covering his hand. You can still have that future, just not with her. Don't let one betrayal define your entire life. He offered a faint smile. I'm trying. Hard to imagine trusting another partner deeply, though. She gave his hand a gentle squeeze. Time. That's the key. A few weeks later, Keith decided to visit the old city to tie up leftover loose ends. A final closing on the sold marital home, collecting some items from a storage unit, and seeing if anything else needed resolution. He invited Olivia to join him, grateful for her local knowledge and supportive presence. They drove into the suburbs, passing familiar streets. Keith felt a mild pang, memories of father figure Devon strolling around, Corey's SUV parked at night, Bethany greeting him with false smiles. He forced a slow exhale, reminding himself it was the past. They stopped at the real estate office first, finalizing a last signature for the house's official new ownership. Keith walked out with a cashier's check for the leftover profits. The realtor congratulated him. Hope your new life is smoother, the realtor joked, gently. He just nodded, appreciating the well wishes. Next, they headed to a dusty storage facility. Keith had stashed some old furniture and boxes from the house. He rummaged through them, marking items for donation or keeping. Among them, he found a small trunk labeled Mom's Keepsakes, containing letters from his late mother, Linda. He sighed, flipping them gently. She'd once believed father figure Devon was a supportive stepdad. That father figure turned out to be a manipulator. Linda never knew the dark truth, having passed earlier. Olivia offered a sympathetic glance. You okay? I'm fine, Keith said, mustering a smile. Just remembering how good Mom was, how father figure Devon must have fooled her too. But that's done. I keep these letters, donate the rest. They loaded the trunk into the car, leaving the rest for charity. Step by step, the final vestiges of his old life were cleared. Exiting the storage facility, Keith nearly collided with an old neighbor from the old block, Ms. Carter, who recognized him. She exclaimed, "Ah, Keith!" My goodness. I heard about the trial. I'm so sorry you went through that. He offered a cordial smile. Thank you. I'm in a better place now. She shook her head, eyes sad. Bethany used to seem so sweet. I guess we never know people's real faces. Yeah, was all Keith said. Ms. Carter gave him a quick hug, wishing him well. It reminded him how many illusions Bethany maintained around neighbors. At least now they saw her true nature. Driving back, Olivia's phone buzzed. She checked it, arching a brow. A contact says father figure Devon got into a brawl inside prison. He apparently tried to strong-arm other inmates. He's now in solitary confinement. Some guess he might not survive the full sentence without incurring more conflict. Keith gazed out the window, expression blank. He made his bed. Hard to pity him. The father figure who threatened my life is reaping his own actions. Olivia nodded. Just wanted you to know, in case you worry he might get out early. Keith shook his head. If he does get out one day, it'll be decades away. I'm not living in fear. Back in the new city, Keith's bond with Denise continued to deepen. They often shared late-night calls or dinners. Sometimes, after a particularly emotional day, she'd swing by his condo to watch a movie or just chat. The undercurrent of attraction was undeniable, but they both respected the slow pace. He was still healing, and she recognized that. One night, while they tidied up takeout boxes, Keith caught her eye. "Denise, you've been an anchor. I don't know if I'd have survived that betrayal without you, thank you." "You're stronger than you think," she said gently, "but I'm happy to help." He hesitated, heart pounding softly. The air felt charged. Yet he didn't want to leap into something out of mere gratitude. He learned the cost of rushing trust. She seemed to read his hesitation, giving him a gentle smile that said, "Take your time." They parted that night with a lingering embrace, no words needed. Finally, the legal divorce was stamped official. Keith's attorney sent him the decree. The marriage between Keith Daniels and Bethany Daniels is hereby dissolved. He felt a pang of final closure reading it. The concept of husband and wife was no more. She was just an inmate, ex-wife, occupant of a prison cell. He texted Denise a simple message. "Divorce is done, feeling complicated but free." She replied with celebratory emojis. He allowed himself a small, bittersweet grin. The last official chain was severed. That night, Keith poured a modest glass of whiskey, standing on his balcony under the stars. The city lights glittered. He reflected on the journey, naive flight attendant who found father figure Devon, best friend Corey, and wife Bethany conspiring behind his back. He methodically dismantled them, culminating in a satisfying trial and lengthy prison terms. Now, no illusions remained. He was truly free. He lifted the glass in a private toast to no one in particular, maybe to the memory of who he used to be, or to the new self forged in betrayal's fire. Then he drank, letting the smoky warmth wash away lingering regrets. A few days later, Denise invited Keith out for a dinner by the waterfront. He arrived to find a small table with a flickering candle, the night breeze carrying a hint of salt from the bay. She wore a simple black dress, hair loose, looking more relaxed than usual. Throughout the meal, they laughed easily, the tension replaced by comfort and mild flirtation. At one point, she reached for his hand across the table. He didn't pull away. Something in her eyes said it might be time to open your heart again. "Keith," she said softly, "I know we've both tiptoed around this, but you mean a lot to me. More than just a detective-client relationship. If you're ready, I'd like to see where this could go." Keith felt his pulse quicken. Memories of father figure Devon's betrayal flitted through his mind, but he brushed them aside. This was Denise. She'd proven loyalty, honesty, steadfast support. Slowly, he nodded, a half-smile forming. "I'd like that too." They shared a quiet moment, the bay's moonlit ripples a backdrop to this new step in his life. The betrayal saga ended, leaving room for genuine connection, built on mutual respect. As they strolled along the pier after dinner hand in hand, Keith reflected on how far he'd come, overcoming father figure Devon's psychological stranglehold, severing ties with Corey's false friendship, divorcing Bethany's manipulative presence. He withstood heartbreak, orchestrated unstoppable revenge, and still emerged with the capacity to trust again cautiously, but genuinely. He gazed at Denise's profile in the moonlight. Perhaps she was the promise that life wouldn't always be betrayal and heartbreak. Perhaps a real future existed beyond the scars. "I used to think trusting was my downfall," Keith murmured. "But maybe with the right person it's my strength." Denise squeezed his hand. "Exactly. Betrayal taught you vigilance, not permanent cynicism." They paused, the hush of the water swirling around them. Then he leaned in, pressing a soft, tentative kiss to her lips. She responded tenderly, an unspoken vow that the ghosts of father figure Devon's manipulations or Corey's mocking laughter no longer defined Keith's life. When they pulled apart, her eyes shone with warmth. "We'll take it slow, but I'm here," she whispered. He nodded, voice low. "I'm ready." Months rolled on. Keith continued thriving in his flight attendant supervisory role, balancing new joys like evenings with Denise, an expanded social circle, and an unwavering sense of self. The father figure, best friend, and wife, who once formed a trifecta of betrayal, were now locked away, contending with their own regrets. The specter of father figure Devon's payback attempts faded as more of his associates either got jailed or lost interest. Occasionally, Keith caught wind of Bethany's struggle in prison, father figure Devon's further isolation, or Corey's stints in the prison workshop. He remained indifferent, their fates sealed. A year turned into 2, 3, and Keith's life blossomed. He even considered forging a deeper relationship with Denise, possibly a future that included trust, not illusions. In a final quiet moment, Keith returned from a flight. Dropping his suitcase by the condo door, he inhaled the warm, welcoming smell of a home that was truly his, no hidden agendas. Denise was there, setting out dinner. They exchanged a smile that spoke volumes of mutual respect and budding love. He thought back to that dark night when he discovered Bethany's phone call with Corey, the beginning of the end. So much heartbreak, culminating in an ironclad revenge. Now, with father figure Devon, Corey, and Bethany serving long sentences, Keith finally felt the last vestiges of betrayal dissolving. In their place came a calm acceptance and an open horizon for a future shaped on his terms. He locked the door, shutting out the past for good. Taking Denise's hand, he stepped into the kitchen, the soft glow of overhead lights reflecting a life reclaimed from the wreckage of trust. The journey from naive husband to unstoppable avenger concluded, replaced by hope. And that, he realized, was the greatest revenge of all, living joyfully, free from the shadows they cast.